Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this impromptu stream to talk about the latest episode of Picard or various other nerdy stuff as the mood strikes us. Joining me so far on the panel is our friends Jay Aldridge and Cinnabon. I think we just kind of new guests come in the backstage. It's welcome, Professor Brainy Specs.
Greetings, John.
And hello to everyone in the chat. I see in addition to we have Jay was in here earlier, and we hello also to Gap After Dark. Also, the crewman, formerly known as the president, should be joining us at some point.
Yeah, I heard he got held up.
Oh, yeah.
So that's who we have to blame.
Who is that?
Mr. Crewman.
And there he is.
He got held up.
Sorry,
I heard
guys.
you hold him up.
What?
You do, Mr. Bunny.
All right, you need
Sorry,
to
guys.
clearly
I must admit, I
start wearing a respirator while you're at the library. The book dust is starting to get to you, I think.
What's
up?
You
What are
have
you
a
talking
very
about?
active imagination, Mr. Bunny.
How are you all? Good?
Doing great.
Good, thanks. How are
Myself
you?
some alcohol,
great.
planning on getting trashed while talking Trek.
Thanks for streaming with me today since I can't join you guys for tomorrow. We're having a family lunch tomorrow for Easter, so
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that goes well for you. And I'm glad you're finally here. I heard you got held up by a bunny.
no,
Scurrilous lie. I won't be slandered like this.
no, Buddy didn't hold
Don't
me
cover
up.
for him, crewman.
I must admit, it's a bit embarrassing. I had the heat pump on because it's a bit cold today, and with it being nice and cozy, I briefly nodded off. So I'm sorry for being late to my own stream.
It was probably the bunny that slipped something in your drink and, made you
yeah.
drowsy and
Yeah,
fall asleep and, just the
Yeah,
kind of stuff that he
Librarian,
does.
I've got a blade. I will cut you.
I should have got security to check it first.
You don't scare me, Bunny.
I'm on my way to Texas right now. Prepare yourself.
Yeah, it looks like you're on your way.
This is a hologram of me, obviously. I'm on an airplane already. You're watching a pre-recorded video of me.
A pre-recorded video that knows how to respond precisely. Sure.
AI technology, hello?
I was wondering that.
That's not pre-recorded.
Of course it is. The pre-recorded. This is just the pre-recorded part is the video. The audio is the AI, the all-knowing AI.
Ah,
Yeah,
so
okay.
It's Borg. So it's
That's
Borg
visual
related.
Creative Bunny.
Respond in real time because
Why,
I'm so
why would
advanced.
you couple an AI with a pre-recorded recording? Why wouldn't you just, if you had that advanced technology, why not just create a hologram of yourself?
Won't stand for these slanderous accusations and
That wasn't slander, that was just a technology question.
Yeah, how dare you accuse crewmen of that?
I don't have a
My
slander.
goodness, I tell you, things we have to put up with around here, John. No, I just
I'm
don't
leaving.
know.
Sorry, John, what were you about to say?
I was just agreeing with what the professor was saying about the crazy things we have to deal with around here.
Yes. Well, maybe I should have never left office.
Well, we'll have to see what turns out in the next election, whenever that happens to be.
Indeed. I'll wait till Cinnabon comes back and then I'll ask you all what you thought of the latest episode.
Who knows how long that will be?
all right, I've calmed
Well,
down
it
and
was
returned.
pre-recorded AI,
Yeah.
whatever.
I've called myself and returned. You're lucky.
So, what did you all think of the episode?
garbage.
I didn't
Oh,
think it was
Lord.
flat out garbage, but do you want to elaborate on that?
Bunny,
An
we're not
hour
talking about
long.
Discovery. We're not talking about Discovery.
It was another delay tactic by the writers. Once again, they're delaying the story more than they need to. And it was a hour-long episode of literally nothing but member berries this time. I will go that far and say that. And essentially a 1 hour of exposition that led absolutely nowhere and progressed the plot zero.
I will agree that they didn't explain what Jack was from the last episode. Vatic says, "Are you ready to know who or what you are?" And she never said it. So I was disappointed at that, but I would just for that I would give the rating an 8 out of 10.
I gave it a D, by the way, so that would be like a 50%.
I agree with it's annoying because it kind of lead us to believe that we know what's going on with Jack in that episode. So that was a bit annoying, but I still enjoyed it overall, and I loved Data's approach of defeating War, how he got around that.
Data was literally a plot device this episode.
He was not.
Yes, he was.
He kind of was.
What do you think about his approach to defeating War? If the person is essentially the sum of their memories, then giving his memory to War was a way of defeating him. I thought that was an interesting twist.
I think for an android, he would be the sum of his memories.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I liked his when he said pissed off.
Yes, there's definitely some of War in there still, but interesting
That was totally new Data, not old Data.
Yes. In the
And the thing about the Vatic and her henchmen turning to ice and crashing into the ship, people got to understand that this is a new changeling evolution or whatever, and they probably couldn't take the cold of outer space. Like
true, but you're not going to flash freeze completely solid within like 3 seconds of being blown into space. It's a little ridiculous.
One of the issues I have is how they're handling the changelings. I understand that these are supposed to be quote unquote new and improved changelings with different abilities. But the impression I get is that they've lost certain abilities, such as being able to survive in space and being impervious to blade weapons, since that never affected them before. But in losing these certain abilities, what have they really gained? I mean, I know the show is
ability
talking
to grow organs, apparently.
Yeah, the show says they can replicate internal anatomy now, but the old changelings could do that too.
I would assume also hold their shape for longer than older changelings. Because we never saw Vatic essentially have to go regenerate as goo.
Yeah, I suppose so. Although we know they still have to use buckets because that was the thing earlier in the season.
That was a standard issue bucket. That's essentially their mobile home that Odo has told everyone that they have to carry with them. Because there might not be lodging at the space station that they're at.
Come down to Odo's mobile homes. We have exactly what you need. One size fits all.
No, I mean the whole bucket thing was dumb. I think that the writers just didn't. Well, yeah, the writers just didn't realize that was just an Odo thing, and for some reason they just added it in for everyone, which doesn't make a lick of sense.
Not only was it just an Odo thing, he didn't even need his bucket toward the end of the series of Deep Space Nine.
True.
No.
Well,
he learned he could charge by mimicking other objects.
Yeah, so
The
I would call the
female
bucket
queen
one of the
powder.
rare, pure member berries that we got.
Yeah.
That really had no purpose. It was just there so people would be like, "Oh my god, it's like Odo's bucket."
And James T. Kirk's body.
That would be just ridiculous. I don't even count that as a member berry. I just think that's stupid.
Oh, I would love to see William Shatner in this.
No.
No, he's way too old.
I
Even
know,
if-
but
okay.
I still would love it.
Even if he came on, I mean, he wouldn't be able to do anything really. He'd be confined essentially to sitting in a chair because he's just not going to have the energy to be able to run around the ship and actually have any kind of action sequence. It's just going to it'd be like Picard, but a little bit better because he can actually breathe, talk without being out of breath after 5 seconds.
That's it. But
I
I'm
was-
still trying to figure out who that I call it a faceless person because you can't see who it is.
I've kind of lost interest in that, honestly.
I'm just trying to figure out who it is. Nagilum, Beeger, something.
I mean, they're clearly trying to make everybody think it's a Borg, which is why I think it's not going to be the Borg. I'm actually hoping it's not going to be the Borg.
God, I hope not. I'm tired of the Borg
it's still
stuff.
emotional to be a Borg.
I don't understand what McGillum or who was the other one you said? V'ger.
I don't
Why
see
would
any
they
of those
need
you know?
shapeshifters?
And I think everyone who has already seen it has said it's going to be a TNG villain or something. I might be wrong, 'cause I haven't watched anybody that has actually
It
seen
may
it all
be,
yet, but that's the rumors
since
I've been
it's
hearing.
Card related and TNG crew, it may be a TNG villain, but they have brought in who is it? The oh God, the Voyager enemies. The cadets were asking about the Hirogen. They mentioned the Hirogen. They mentioned changelings. They mentioned almost every villain in TNG, but we still can't figure out who it is.
I'm a little bit concerned about the pacing because we still don't know who the big bad is, and there's only 2 episodes to go, correct?
Yes.
That's my biggest concern is that everything's going to start feeling extremely rushed now because they've had way too many questions to answer. They should have started answering these things before. And even the ones that they have answered so far, they open up another 10 more questions. So they need to start wrapping things up with some of these
I've
storylines.
enjoyed the episodes
That's
on
true.
an individual level, but I think they should have, at the very least, in this last episode, revealed what they're facing. Because with only 2 episodes to go, yeah, I agree the pacing's a little off. What do you think, Professor? Do you think I'm being
I think a lot of these questions will get answered in episode 9.
Yeah. Do you,
And
do
then
you
the
should have
first
think,
half of
started,
episode
the
10
last
will wrap up.
do you
I'm
think
sorry, Jay.
Go ahead.
sorry, Jay.
And then the first half of episode 10 will wrap up the story, and then we'll get kind of a nostalgia send-off for the TNG cast for the end of this episode 10.
Is 10 going to be a 2-parter?
And do we really need any more nostalgia scenes? We've had quite enough, I think.
Oh, well, what was that, Crewman? You said 2-parter?
Is
For-
episode 10 going to be a 2-parter?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, they said it's all 10 is an hour.
I don't know how they're going to wrap it up in time because they've just literally got everyone around the table for the observation lounge, and they said we're no close to solving this thing. I think they should have wrapped up at least who they're facing in the last episode, and they didn't. Which is what,
If
what
you
do
want
you
to,
think?
if you want to be technical, you could say the entire series is a 10-parter.
Well, yeah, true. Do you think
5
I'll meet
movies in one.
It's not even 5. It's one long,
Joe-
drawn-out movie.
you think I'm being too harsh, or do you think I'm being spot on?
I think
with the
people are not
pacing?
being critical enough, to be honest. This last episode, I mean, I was also one of the people that have been given every episode an A or B up until the last two. So I've been really positive about this season. But at the same time, I can acknowledge when there's clear flaws in what's going on in these last two episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about the pacing, Professor? Are you concerned by it?
The pace.
Well, actually, I think there's probably enough story for like 6 or 7 episodes, and they've just had to pad.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think they have enough story for 10 episodes. I think these last two should have just been one episode and just cut out all the fat.
What do you think, John?
Yes, I agree that the pacing is too slow. They're dragging out this mystery box thing like they tend to do every season. And I'm trying to compare this to what if, like, and you had the Wrath of Khan, but Khan didn't show up until the last 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah,
haven't still haven't revealed who the big bad is. It's like they've been fighting Joachim for like an hour and a half. And now finally Khan's going to show up in the next episode. Maybe.
yeah.
And literally, like for 3 hours, it kept going. Would you like to find out who this man is that's trying to kill you, and just never tell you?
Yeah.
It'd be so irritating.
That's a good analogy, John. I was also a little bit disappointed in the fact that Picard's codec or whatever you called it didn't work. It's like, why didn't entering code didn't work? Maybe it was aborted at the last second, but it was like that whole technique was faulted, and that was a bit annoying.
Are you talking about?
I was really excited when they said, "Oh, Jack's gonna enter all these bodies and fight, all these people through these other people," and that seemed like an intriguing concept. But they didn't spend, they didn't tease, they tease out some things too much, but they don't tease out other things enough. I would have liked to see going a little bit more undetected for a little bit longer, and just him causing a bit of chaos by entering one person after another, and slowly retaking the ship that way, but it didn't work.
I thought the entire codex thing was really contrived, to be honest. There was no way that Picard and Jack would have known that Asian Bajoran guy was standing right next to a control panel in the first place. It would have made more sense if he, say, like jumped into Shaw's body and then was able to look around and see who was next to a control panel, and then jump to his body. Also, why would they even jump into a Starfleet's crew member's body? Why not just jump into one of her henchmen that has a weapon and start shooting everybody, or Vadic herself, and try to control her? The other thing I thought was dumb was why would Picard, a retired admiral, have any kind of code that could take over any ship in the fleet? That makes zero sense.
That's true. I've sort of in my head, I know Shaw said he was retired, but in my head canon, I've kind of counted him as not retired, because a retired admiral wouldn't be able to do starship inspections either. So and a retired admiral wouldn't be constantly wearing an admiral's badge. So I've kind of just ignored the retired, but
Didn't Riker put Picard in charge for a while?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think he officially transferred his codes over to him. And like I said, Picard's been out of service for many years at the I wouldn't say many, maybe like 5-10 years, maybe.
Yeah, but if he was in command, he would have to be able to control the ship.
Riker
Not necessarily.
turned over the command codes to Shaw.
What I mean is he would be in the system.
Yeah, but I
as
think
the ranking
be highly
officer,
restricted though, as a form.
I don't think a retired admiral would have any command codes because he's retired. They would take them out of the system.
And it also
if
doesn't make
he's
sense
put
that
in
these
charge, if he's the number one person running the ship, which he was for an episode,
for like
about
10
an
minutes.
episode,
So
I can't remember him,
he would have to have a code.
him specifically being put in charge, but I must be missing that one. But as I said, I just ignore that in my head canon. He's not retired at all. I think that was a silly line from Shaw saying he was. Another silly thing regarding the ranks is I don't know why Geordie would be promoted past Riker. So the very I think Riker instead of being a captain should at least have been a creative admiral by now. Maybe not full admiral, but rear admiral at least. And Geordie was a lieutenant commander in TNG, so why is he suddenly a commodore and Riker's still a captain? I think
Commodores usually only used for war. When they're at peace, they go straight to it's called something else, rear admiral, lower half, or something.
not if you base it off the original series. They had commodores all the time.
Well, I think
They were in
Riker
a
is
state of
too
war then.
reluctant to give up the command chair, and don't forget he was not retired, but he was he took
On reserve.
on reserve. Yeah, so he technically wouldn't be probably promoted during that period of time.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
I could buy Geordie being a commodore and
Yeah.
Riker only being a captain.
Okay, fair enough.
And then we see Worf a captain.
Yeah, that was kind of out of nowhere. Which he should never have been promoted to captain because of that provision that Cisco put in his file. So that's breaking canon.
But in DS9, Cisco said that he may not ever get a command of his own.
Yeah, that's
after doing what he did with the mission with Jadzia.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But I admit that I'm nitpicking now. I'm nitpicking with Wolf. I'm being a bit too nerdy. But I still enjoyed watching the show overall. The episode.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed watching the show.
I was just mostly disappointed the Codex thing didn't work. That we didn't see Jack jumping into more crewmen and taking over the ship that way, and disappointed that we didn't get to be revealed what's going on with Jack. Yeah.
That's where I get the Nagilum factor, because Nagilum literally killed a crewman on the Enterprise D by basically tapping into his brain and causing an aneurysm or something, and he died. And then Jack takes over this Sydney and this other person.
I mean, it doesn't really make sense for me to be Nagilum. Nagilum would be way more powerful. I mean, you could literally just trap the ship in another void somewhere and just take Jack that way. There'd be no need for all of this.
That's true. I've been trying my hardest trying to find out who it is. Go ahead, John.
I don't think it's going to be somebody like Nagilum, because that's going to be too obscure for a casual fan. If they're gonna bring back somebody from TNG, they're gonna bring back somebody big that everybody knows, like the Borg, or it didn't have to be them, but that's the one everybody knows about.
What about some Ferengi Damon like Damon Buck? Damon Buck or whatever.
Ferengis don't have the ability to teleconnect the Vadic the way this creature did by making her pain, you know.
But maybe the Ferengi bought a mysterious artifact that gave them powers.
I don't think it's the Ferengi.
Yeah, I don't see that the Ferengi would have anything to do with this. It doesn't really make too much sense to me either. I think at this point, that it's going to be either the Borg, because that's what they're heavily pointing to. And the only other thing I can think of that makes any sense, just because of the red eyes and the fact that the floating head thing is kind of fiery-ish, it would be the pod connection to like the pod wraiths or something. I think those are like really the only two that really make sense in the context that we've seen so far. And then if it's not, I mean, I think it would have to be something completely different and new, if it's not one of those two.
And I would be very saddened that it would be the pod wraith, because the Cisco's mother said that she had put them back in their cell and they would never get out.
Well, I mean,
Cisco's
I don't
mother.
know. I wouldn't mind. I mean, there was so much,
And it
there
may
was so
be
little done in
somebody
DS9
all
with them.
new.
Yeah, I think if something all new, though, it's just going to feel hollow at this point, and it's not going to make any sense.
No.
Why they would want Picard's body, why would they want Jack's son? Because essentially they'd be implying a connection that we never saw, so why the hell would we care?
And it can't be the Romulans.
So yeah, I really hope that. I mean, they have to reveal everything in episode 9. They can't just do it all in the last episode. But
I've been going back on TNG and looking at every episode to see who the bad guy of the week was, and I just don't see any of them going to be this person. It's got to be somebody from way past, or who's coming back, or it's a brand new person.
I don't think it's somebody new.
I wouldn't put it past somebody. Have the floating head guy be somebody completely new.
I have no idea, Crewman.
Oh, please don't let it be Charlie X.
By the way,
I doubt it.
By the way, I've decided to promote myself now.
Congratulations on your promotion.
It was taking too long to win a round of Jeep duty.
Oh, you're able crewman now.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Mira Shatner.
Oh, Mira Shatner. Well, it could be no, because he was reintegrated. I was going to say it could be the duplicate Shatner from the transporter accident, but he was reintegrated in the episode.
I mean, for me, I actually hope it's just a reimagine. The floating head thing is just a reimagining of those bug creatures from the first season of TNG.
Yes.
That's, I think, what I would like to see the most.
But then why would they be obsessed with Jack?
Well, they want something inside Jack, I suppose. Which it still doesn't make sense, but I mean that'd be like the enemy I'd like to see. But because it seems like the entire plot is essentially a rerun of the conspiracy plot, so I think that would fit at least.
Those creatures, they were actually going to be the concept of the Borg.
Mm-hmm.
And then when whatchamacallit that created it left the series in season 2, season 3, they reimagined the Borg being what they were in TNG. But basically that was going to be the Borg.
Now, speaking of the Borg, I actually had a thought the other night. Would there be much difference between the Borg Collective and the Great Link? Because in Deep Space Nine, the female changeling says the drop becomes an ocean, and the ocean becomes a drop. So that would imply a hive mind, no individuality.
Yeah.
That's disappointing for Odo because that means the essence of Odo would be lost. Um, but um, but what do you think living in the Great Link would just be as bad as living in the Borg Collective? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I think they still retain some individuality as a changeling.
I would disagree. I would think that the difference between the two would be that the Great Link, essentially, when they're in the Great Link, they just become one giant entity, and there is no more individuality. And then in the Borg, even though they're a collective, they still retain, single minds all working together.
But it's suppressed.
Right.
Their individuality.
So on one hand, I suppose you could say it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And also I kind of get Jeff's point because it doesn't really make sense if they all blend together and become one, and there is no individual anymore. Then how the hell do they separate from each other again?
Yeah.
So that was my point.
Think there has to be some kind of so now that I think about it, yeah, there probably is some kind of individuality there.
That line in the search, whenever it was very confusing when they said the drop becomes the ocean and the ocean becomes the drop. Particularly the ocean,
Star Trek, though.
The ocean becoming the drop implies that it's all of them in a single body.
That's just kind of the thing with Star Trek, though. Sometimes they make lines that just sound good but don't really mean anything. When you put some real thought behind it.
Also, one thing I'll mention is that this comparison about the ocean, the drop, comes from the female changeling, who is not necessarily a reliable source of information. She may be sugarcoating it for Odo's benefit.
True.
That's true. That's true. But
you also have to admit that Odo was never really an expert.
I remember thinking about this when I first watched Deep Space Nine on the first run, when Odo decided to join the Link. I was like, no, don't do it. It's just like the Borg. Don't do it. Anyway, it was very.
And what happened to the female changeling since she was imprisoned?
She's still in
after
prison.
DS9.
Who knows?
Yeah, nothing was officially said on TV or in the movies.
I would assume she's still either imprisoned or they just executed her eventually. You would think they would just execute her at some point.
Experiment.
Yeah, I really wish they'd blamed that whole experimenting thing on Section 31 rather than Daystrom. It totally reimagines what Daystrom has always been, which is a peaceful scientific facility, not an instrument of torture.
And using them as spies, I just don't see how they would be able to corrupt them to follow the Section 31's orders. Now I can understand them experimenting them to create the virus or new virus against the changelings, but I don't.
Well, I can see that. If you could have a changeling that was completely on side with you, that could
but how would you get them on your side?
Well, that was the whole thing. That was just be programmed to torture, essentially, and that's what they're working on. But if once you got that to work, having a perfect spy that could replicate any species, that would be a huge plus for Section 31 intelligence.
And Vadic said she can pass this along to anyone, not any changeling, anyone.
I took it as more as just as to any changeling, that they could change the normal changelings into their version, into the modified version, like she was. Because if she could change anyone, essentially, that would just make no sense to me. Essentially, they'd be turning a solid person into a changeling then, and that just makes zero sense.
And they never do that because they despise
that was bad writing. They should have said any changeling instead of anyone. Even while we're talking, my head is wrapping around trying to figure out who this person is, and I'm just not seeing anything.
See, I'm
Why
not too
would the
bothered by
Q?
that.
Why would the Q destroy the Federation? Who would have these kind of powers to hurt the changelings? It can't be the Hirogen. It can't be the Vok.
Do you think something's happened to Tomahawk?
Tomahawk?
Remember Tomahawk from TNG?
Oh yeah, I remember Tomahawk. But
Something happened to transform.
We don't know if he survived the supernova or not.
I mean, I don't really,
think it's Tomahawk.
honestly, I don't really think that even the head thing is controlling them. I think that essentially that the big head thing probably just made some promises to, help the changelings, reconquer the Great Link and destroy all the solids for them and help them do that, so that they just essentially became partners. But they're obviously the more powerful partner, and they just fear them. And because that the big head race species or whatever could actually do harm to that faction of the changelings, they just fear them. So they're just essentially being controlled through fear. And I think that it might actually just be a complete misdirect too, and that it's not even going to play even in a big part in the end of this, and it's all going to be a huge letdown. So I'm trying not to put too much thought into it, to be honest.
It couldn't be Section 31. One person in Section 31 that would think that Starfleet. They think that Starfleet is becoming dangerous or something to the Federation, and since their charter says they eliminate anything or anyone that would destroy the Federation.
Yeah, but they're also not going to help this faction of changelings that's clearly on a quest to essentially eliminate solids. I mean, that would just work against them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, please don't bring Section 31 into this.
Okay.
I know they were mentioned earlier, but earlier in the series.
That was my fault, Professor Oakwood.
Couldn't be the racist people in what is it, Code of Honor or whatever it is.
Oh, Matthew's people.
Indeed.
Apparently mine too, because I was so young that I didn't know that was a racist episode.
And Thomas does make a good point that too many people are trying to assume that there's millions of changelings out there just essentially replacing everybody in Starfleet. I mean, they only have to take over a few key positions.
Yeah.
I know a couple people have been saying that clearly changelings have taken over several of these entire crews of ships. Well, that's not necessarily true either. They just need the captain, maybe the first officer, and just not do anything completely sus when everybody else is around. I mean, I'm sure they're adept at acting like normal Starfleet officers when they have to.
Yeah,
but Changeling Tuvok changes his appearance right on the bridge of his ship.
Technically, they never said he was on a ship. She said he would go and meet 7 of 9. He could have just been in an office somewhere, and there was no indication that it was a bridge. And and just because he has captain's rank, there's no indication that he's actually captain of a ship right now.
If he's on that ship, he's dead now.
So he could have just been in a private office up on his own talking to 7. So I don't think there's a problem with that. And remember, that's an episode I didn't like. So.
Yeah. I had a feeling he was a changeling as soon as I saw him. Something just told me.
I didn't. I was sucked right in, and then I'm like, oh no.
Well, I was kind of doubting that at first because he used the phrase, need I remind you, which the real Tuvok always used.
Yeah.
What do you think about the wine test that Jody used about the gift? And
I think it was believable.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
It was a
Oh,
funny line because
uh,
essentially everybody that knows Picard essentially gives him shit about his wine, how it's not that good.
yeah.
At least we know it's
I
not
like
Janeway
it.
and Paris's babies.
Or is it?
Or is
Dun
it?
dun dun.
My problem with that scene wasn't the wine discussion. It was more, how did they get there from sickbay? All the doors were locked.
Mm-hmm.
Magic.
Mm-hmm.
That's another example of the writers just
I
doing
thought it
things
was-
they
And
want to
she
do.
locked
They
down
change.
every door. How did they get through it?
How was Jack supposed to get to the bridge?
Well, they wanted Jack to the bridge, so they let the system work.
So they
for him.
probably left the turbo lift on
Yeah.
where he was. And
'Cause they
how
kept
did they
on-
know where he was? Oh, Lord.
Yeah, since they were in control of the bridge, why can't they just scan the ship for where he was?
Yeah.
Isolate him in a force field and then just beam him to where they need him, or just go pick him up.
Yes, I was a bit wondering why they're waiting for him to come to the bridge instead of beaming him.
I love that force field grenade.
Yeah, that was cool. Wasn't a grenade at all. It just looked like one.
Yeah.
It's it had no intention.
Yeah, but I didn't like the other part of that whole plan.
The
That was a
bridge
terrible
opened
scene.
up into space.
Why would you have that on the bridge?
Because people need to evacuate, damn it.
Yeah,
space.
evacuate out into space. Yeah, just blow yourself out into space. That's
one
how you
hell of an
evacuate.
evacuation.
Through the view screen, that just did not make sense.
Oh shit.
Now we
Oh,
know
that's
in First Contact there was an emergency hatch off the bridge, but when he said open the hatch, I'm going like, well, isn't that away from the bridge? What is that going to do anything?
Another thing,
And then that view screen opened. Oh my God, that was so stupid.
and what was the point?
I
Go ahead.
You
didn't
just
mind it
destroyed
too
the view screen.
much. I didn't mind it because you think of generations with the whole source crash. There were people on the.
It would have been better if they got sucked out of the top of the bridge. That window she was looking
If it
through.
was just like a hatch somewhere that blew, I'd buy it. But I mean, literally, they had like this magical blue line, cut the screen in half. Then all of a sudden, it opens up where there's clearly not a door partition there, so there's no way that would even work.
Right.
Unless it was literally a hologram that was that was just the front of the bridge.
Oh, come on,
the other
Thomas.
problem I have with that
It did get
scene-
a slightly bit darker.
I'll get to that too in a second. But the other problem I have with that scene is, what was it? Why did Picard have to do that? I mean, there's Seven's on the bridge. She's first officer of the ship. She should be able to do that with her voice command immediately.
Probably didn't know what he was
call
getting
Picard,
at.
who's down in a different room, to open up that door.
But no.
Get off my bridge.
Briefed on the plan.
It's also very.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that's why I thought originally Seven stayed behind on the bridge because she was gonna do it herself and just sacrifice herself by blowing everybody into space. Once I saw that thing,
Yeah.
but apparently not because
Sorry,
she couldn't open the door. It took a
She didn't know how to open the door.
Sorry, John. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say it was very convenient for our heroes that none of those changelings decided to actually change anything into anything that would prevent them from flying out the view screen either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of figured that these new changelings can only go to like a goo form to essentially like escape, and can't really change their shape. They're kind of almost semi-locked in their current forms.
Well, I kind of get the impression that the experiments done on them, that was the intention. They were trying to find a way to make them solid. and they were partially successful.
Hmm.
Okay.
And that's why I
That's
can kind of give a pass to bladed weapons working, but it's still dumb to bring a friggin' sword to a phaser fight.
And I don't like what they look like when they go into when they're changing into their goo parts to escape. It looks. Bleh. They should have kept it the original color.
That's good, Thomas. I like that.
What do you say?
If Picard was on the bridge, he would yell, "Get off my lawn!"
The Thomas's earlier point about not turning off the lights essentially didn't do anything. That's kind of true, but I mean, Vadic was making a whole bunch of just useless threats. I mean, she threatened to turn off the galaxy, turn off the gravity. What the hell was that supposed to do to kill them? Just make them float around? That was just the most pointless threat that she could possibly make.
No, I could see that being.
Yeah, but she was making threats that would kill them, and just turning off the gravity is just going to make them float around. Oh no!
Well, that would be very incapacitating for a lot of people.
Or why not just flood the entire ship with a gas that'll knock them out?
Yeah,
and then go find Jack at your leisure.
Exactly.
And that's was being gas.
I mean, there's so many holes in this entire plan. It was just clearly not thought through.
Computer identify
don't get me
location
wrong.
of Jack
I like
Crusher.
What?
Yep.
Computer identify location of Jack Crusher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he had a comm badge on.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say how would the computer find him, but if he had a combat John, that's how it would find him.
Or did he get out of his Starfleet uniform?
I think he was out of the uniform, but
I think he
still had the badge.
But even then, I mean, the first place I would go look if I was them would be sick bay.
Yeah.
And not one person was sent down there.
They know Dr. Crusher's a doctor. She would be in sick bay.
Exactly. I mean, even if he's not there, go pick up Mom and start threatening her life.
Mm-hmm. But why are they using Beverly's voice?
Because I think it has something to do with Beverly. I think that's what the whole misdirecting is, making everyone think it's going to be something about Picard and the Borg, and then it's going to be actually something weird about Beverly.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean Beverly's voice? Have I missed something?
Oh, the red door.
Well, they better tell us what's behind that red door next week. But I have
can
a feeling
tell you
they're not.
Who's behind the red door?
It's
the Red Angel.
Oh,
Michael
God,
Burnham.
no.
And she's going to save
God,
the
no.
Red Lady. She's going to save the Red Lady.
Oh, God, no.
Oh, Lord, no.
That'd be terrible.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's a dumb complaint, Thomas. I mean, even guests of the Enterprise would usually get a comm badge to communicate, so I don't have a problem with what's-his-face having a comm badge.
Yeah, I agree. Wow.
What was
We're all in agreement over that.
Yeah.
That's the universe is going to blow up or something.
Now, Professor, you expressed surprise at me calling myself able crewman. Have you seen any? It's different from the U.S. Navy, but have you seen any other navies rank and rate charts at all?
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part of what you said.
Have you ever seen any rank charts of Commonwealth navies at all?
Okay, I'm really sorry. I'm not understanding what you're asking.
That's all right.
The ranks from the Commonwealth Navy.
Have you ever seen Any rank charts?
Rank charts.
Yeah.
I have heard of the phrase able crewman before.
Well, able seaman. So, but because
Yeah.
we're in space, I'm
Seaman.
making it crewman. You see.
They're
it
able
goes
to crew men.
So it goes from some countries say crewman or ordinary crewman, but I dropped the ordinary, and so the next one is able crewman, and the next one will be leading crewman, and then you get petty
Well,
officer.
thank goodness you didn't go to yeoman.
You're definitely
Yeoman-
not ordinary.
Yeoman's not a.
You should have made yourself an ensign or commander or something.
Well, yeoman's not a level per se; it's a role. Whereas
They got rid of yeomans ever since they got replicators and stuff.
Yeah, so the point is yeoman's not a rank. Yeoman is a position.
yes, that's
Yeah.
what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeomans, as they were used in the original series, weren't very accurate. They didn't just bring coffee to the captain or pads to the captain. They looked after a lot of administration stuff, including pay. So poor old yeoman Rand got a bit shortchanged in her portrayal of the.
Oh my God, it's Yeoman Rand. Come back.
You're saying the big bad is yeoman Rand?
I'm pretty sure he's joking.
I know.
McCoy's
But
back and he's
is
pissed
that
off.
what you mean? Kirk didn't date me. Kirk dumped me. I want revenge on the entire Federation.
And so then I got stuck on the Excelsior with Sulu.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Uh-oh.
No wonder that ship was such a failure and
My.
never amounted to anything besides charting gaseous anomalies.
Sulu wasn't that bad. Why does he
Never
make
knew
it-
what happened to the
Terrible captain.
the
Take care,
Enterprise.
Multi-Gunman.
I've noticed a lot of dislike for Sulu these days. Why is that?
And I don't understand anyone's like of Sulu. I mean, he's a terrible captain. He was such a terrible officer, he couldn't even make captain until the end of till like 10 weeks before the end of his career.
10 weeks.
Yeah, I'm giving him a couple months to be captain at least.
Wow.
That's odd.
The entire
I-
entire Enterprise crew, which is the main crew, senior staff, which was essentially the same age as Sulu, are all retiring. You're gonna tell me that Sulu's not also retiring, and he just got his ship?
Well, Uhura and Chekhov probably wasn't retiring. They were just leaving the Enterprise to do something else.
I could see Uhura retiring. Chekhov, I'm not so sure.
No, he was
No,
not
he's going to be
general.
in security or something.
But I loved Sulu in the original series. He had so many interesting hobbies.
Nonsense. Chekhov had to retire because he had to go be on Babylon 5.
I like that. Although we did
He-
not spoil.
He
too much
actually
for
pitched
John.
a series for himself after his appearance on Voyager.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
really?
Well, he's been pitching that stupid Captain Sulu show for a long time, and nobody wants
Yeah.
it. Everyone wants that just about as much
I
as Star Trek
did.
Academy.
I wanted to
I-
see more movies with Sulu as captain on the
Oh my
Excelsior.
god.
I would have preferred a Captain Sulu series over Discovery and Picard.
Anything
Well, it depends on
over
what they
Discovery.
it depends on who produced it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would have been good if they had a series with Sulu back early 2000s or late
think so.
90s.
Yeah.
Had that happened, that would have been the first Berman era Trek show I would not have bothered to watch.
Why? What's your?
Sulu
See, I got
hater,
it.
you.
It's the
I have
Cylon.
zero interest in Sulu. I think he's a terrible character. and I have no interest in his
I was just
terrible
making
adventures on the
a
Excelsior.
mirror joke.
Fancy not liking Sulu. I love Sulu in the original series.
I feel the same way if they were like, oh, let's make a Scotty show. I'd have no interest in watching that either.
Now you're a Scotty hater as well.
No, I don't hate Scotty, but he's just not a character I would be interested in watching lead a series.
Okay.
I don't think he could be the central character of a show.
Right. I mean, I don't think any of those,
like the captain of a ship.
I don't think any of those guys would be good leads of a show.
How about the O'Brien show?
I don't think he could carry a show either.
No, I really don't. I mean,
That's
I think a lot of the
He's
supporting.
the badass.
I don't think really any of the supporting cast could carry a show at this point. I mean, they could maybe do like a mini series or something like that, but a full series, no, I don't really think so.
Fair enough.
Don't even say Garrick, or I'm gonna leave.
We didn't have to. You said his name.
Well, I know that some of you were thinking that because now I know a lot of you think Garrick's the greatest character in Star Trek.
I know there
wholeheartedly disagree.
I know there was a talk of a Quark spin-off at one point.
That would be terrible as well. That'd be funny as like a couple like movies of the week maybe, but after that it would just get old. I just want them to make a new ship that's not the Discovery with a new crew, go into the future in like the 25th century. I don't even care if they just go a little bit past where Picard is right now, and just do a fun show in space again. I'm tired of these season-long arcs to try to tell like ridiculous.
New crew with no expectations that we need to slow into. Yeah, I'd agree with that. That's what I want too. Cinnabon, I agree. Because then we don't have to worry about being consistent with the character because they're new in character. And
they need to just do something new. I'm tired of them going back to the well nonstop, just rebooting things. I don't need to see anything else in the TOS era because they can't do it to match up with the original TOS. So it's just an inferior product, in my opinion. Strange New Worlds is a horrible series. It doesn't match up. If you want to talk about a show destroying the ethos of another show, well, there you go. A Strange New World completely destroys the ethos of the original series. So I don't understand why.
I've been saying that for months, and people just look at me like you're crazy.
I mean, I don't understand why anybody that's a fan of the original series is championing, this Strange New World show. I mean, it completely shits all over it, but for some reason they give it a pass.
Yeah.
Welcome, Tokyo.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. I would think someone who likes TOS would hate Strange New Worlds for what it does, but some people defend it. I don't understand.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I was done with TOS with the last straw was me. It was the version of Kirk. He was nothing like Kirk.
I think the timeline, the earlier timelines have had their run. I mean, I don't think you could go back into the movie era. I don't think you can go back into the TOS era. I don't think you can go back into the early the mid 24th century, like in the normal TNG timeline.
Yeah,
because you just couldn't, with today's filming techniques, you just couldn't match it up with what was happening back then. So it would just be jarring and wouldn't look like it lined up with the canon of those series. No matter how well you produced it, to be honest. So they need to stop going back to the well and just move forward and do something else, or just let Trek die for a little bit and then make something else later on.
Yeah, stop trying to reinvent the wheel is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tired of seeing new Kirks. We don't need to see Kirk and Spock anymore. They've had their time in the sun, for God's sake. So move on. I like those characters, but
yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a spin-off series with Shaw as the captain in the Titan. Maybe 7, but have 7 the only player of the character.
I don't know. They kind of destroyed the Shaw character in this last episode. I think
Yeah.
he just came off as a wimp. He didn't want to do anything. Didn't want to challenge Vatic.
Yeah, that's true.
I felt they turned him into an extreme coward, and the only one that had any courage on that bridge was 7 of 9 this episode.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a shame because I liked his character.
Yeah, me too. I guess the only defense you can say to that is he's at heart an engineer and an explorer and not a combat officer. But still,
But if
grow
that's the
a
case,
spine, Shaw.
if that was the case, he should never have been given command of a ship because combat is one of the requirements.
So,
what else should we discuss?
Truman, what was your general impression of the last episode?
So I really enjoyed the Data triumph over Law and his approach to beating Law, and it looked like he was giving up, but it was a really good twist, and giving Law his memories so that Law would become him. I really, really enjoyed that. I was disappointed that the code that Picard gave Jack didn't work. I don't know quite how the plan didn't work. The only thing I could think of is that Vatic aborted at the last second. And I would have liked to have seen Jack sort of take over more people and try and get hold of the ship. Stepping stone by stepping stone, take over this person, then this person, then this person. And I would have liked him to have retaken the ship instead of relying on Data to do it. I did enjoy the episode after all, but like I've said earlier, I'm concerned about the pacing. I think they should have revealed everything in this last episode, and then with 2 episodes to fighting a known enemy. 2 episodes for fighting a known enemy is not too much. They should have really revealed everything that's going on with Jack, and they didn't. So I'm disappointed with the pacing. But in terms of the overall content, I enjoyed it on an individual level. I'm just worried about the pacing, where it fits with the other episodes, with only 2 episodes to go, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. My big problem with the data scene was essentially it was pretty much the definition of member berries. The whole battle between him and Lore. One, I never believed for a second that he was going to be deleted because essentially they're not going to bring the character back and essentially kill him for a 3rd time. That made no sense to me, so I didn't believe for a second that Lore was going to win in that battle. And yeah, so far I don't think he's been much of a character at all. I think he's been basically just used as a literal plot device to push things forward. So that's kind of the reason why I'm just completely fed up with the whole Data character.
Fair enough. Hopefully he'll get more to do in the last 2 episodes. I kind of thought maybe the reason they killed off the Vulcan officer was so that they could take over whatever role that person had.
Yeah, I mean, there was no kind of emotional resonance with that death because she was just a background character. She had maybe like 1 or 2 lines. I mean, if they
hated bald chicks.
I mean, if they killed the girl that they already had kneeling, who was clearly crying and terrified, even though she wasn't a big main character this season, she actually, it would have been, kind of sad to see her go. She was clearly scared, and that would have actually created an emotional response. But to kill essentially just some random person on the bridge was just pointless.
And a Vulcan at that who's incapable of having the terror before she died. Yeah, I agree. I would have felt the loss of the one that was crying more than the Vulcan.
Yeah, even though we didn't know that
Forgive me if that's
was
racist.
kneeling down, at least she was she was crying. She looked terrified. I mean, even though we didn't know her, I still would have felt bad for her.
Yeah.
But the Vulcan chick, I mean, I remember just writing notes for that episode while I was watching, and my whole note was, "Oh no, they killed the Vulcan. We don't know anything about. How sad."
But she was more Tavine was more on screen than the other two.
It was more on screen than the drawing.
Damn it, Thomas. That's the only time I've complained about member berries this entire season has been literally this data scene. Every other time that people have been brought up the member berries thing, I've defended it by saying it's not member berries. It fits in the story. And if it was just there to be set decoration, then it would be.
No, actually, I want to correct the record on that, Cinnabon. I distinctly remember you complaining not at the time about member berries, and it was the time on the Daystrom station.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. Some of that was ridiculous. I mean,
So
Kirk's body.
this is
member berries.
the second time, not the first time.
Fine, I'll accept that.
I'm keeping score, Thomas.
Fine, I'll accept that because yes, that was a lot of member berries in there. That just because it didn't serve the story at all. It was just there to be there.
Thomas, do you think I deserve another promotion for keeping Cinnabon honest?
If they're going to steal the most powerful weapons in that station, take the friggin' Genesis device. That was probably the most powerful thing they had.
Yes, about the date station. I think, yes, that was an excuse for member berries. And the reason why I say that is because I know there's 2 episodes left to go, but so far, none of the stuff they've seen in that station, except for Data, has had anything to do with the plot.
Exactly.
And if the final 2 episodes do hinge on dead Kirk and an attack Tribble, it's going to be terrible.
I would actually like the attack Tribble. That would be pretty awesome.
Although supposedly Picard's body has something to do with this, so
yeah, but they blew it up, so there's 0 point to that either. True, they got the data from the computer, but literally they just blew up his body. Good job, guys.
Well, remember they were doing research on his aromatic syndrome, so I think it's something to do with Jack. What's going on with Jack with the aromatic syndrome? So on and so forth.
It's got to be more than
they
that.
Wanted they wanted the part of his brain that was supposedly Irumodic syndrome that was apparently misdiagnosed. So they needed his body to do a lobotomy, apparently.
Yeah.
The end of the series will be Picard sacrifices himself for the crew this time instead of Data.
I hope so. Then they can't torture us with another season.
Well, I don't know how many times I've heard that this is the last season.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that too, but there's constant
It is
talk
the
that
last
they
season. They're going to do something called Star Trek Legacy with the new characters.
Oh my god!
But
yeah, I believe it when I see it.
They haven't literally said that yet because it's Terry's thing, but Alex Kurtzman is still the head honcho of it, so he may not. Because at the premiere, they said that Alex Kurtzman wasn't rude. He just didn't acknowledge anything about Terry, didn't shake his hand, didn't smile at him, didn't do nothing. It's like he didn't really like that Terry was getting all this accolades,
Well, of course not.
So
I mean, honestly, if they're going to announce something on the next Star Trek Day, I would place bets that it's more likely they would announce a weird legacy series over a Section 31 series being greenlit and ready to shoot.
No, they got to do Section 42.
What is this?
Section 69.
What?
No thanks.
What, Kermit?
Section 69 to be pornographic. No thanks. What is this?
Just a joke.
Legacy thing. I haven't heard anything about that. that's supposed to be.
Metalis wants to continue in the TNG era, essentially making a spin-off off of this last season, and essentially all the TNG characters are on board to do this. So that's why I'm saying that I wouldn't put it past them to actually do it.
There'd be one every now and then coming back as a guest star, but it was mostly hinted that it's going to be because Terry Metalis said at one of the conventions that one of the audience members asked him, is there in this series of season Picard where it may be a passing of the torch of a new next generation? He said definitely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the last episode is literally titled The Next Generation.
I would actually like that. A new series set in that time period, but with entirely new characters. That would be good. Because that's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's trying something fresh and new.
I honestly think the last episode being titled The Next Generation is supposed to be a backdoor setup for a new spin-off, and they're going to wait to see what the reception of that is to announce anything.
Wasn't the first episode called Next Generation?
I have no idea.
Yes, the first episode was called The Next Generation.
It might actually be the next generation. I'm not sure, but it was definitely something like the next generation.
I like Generations more than I do Next Generations or Legacy.
The first episode was titled The Next Generation.
I think the last one's just Next Generation.
Maybe. But I like Generations better. That way they can keep on going.
The last episode is actually titled The Last Generation.
The Last Generation, that's it. Thank you.
Oh.
Well, that would imply there isn't going to be any spin-offs.
Well, I think that's just the bookend closing for the Next Generation crew. The Last Generation. Thanks, Darren.
Welcome, Darren.
They are fans are really are what's the word?
What? Sorry,
I'm trying to think of the word. It's kind of like an announcement. They're airing their thought that they want a Worf and Raffi show.
No.
Oh God!
No more.
Please.
Raffi needs to be fired.
No Raffi.
No, please no. Sick of Raffi. I'm just gonna push myself up in the tea, guys. I'll just turn off my webcam.
Honestly, they're dumb enough to make a show about Tilly and the Starfleet Academy, though. Yeah. I'm sure they'll probably make a Raffi show.
I can't believe the green lighting anything spinning off Discovery. I mean, they know it's bad enough to cancel it, so why make a new show? Why have anything to do with that disastrous time period they created for themselves? It's just madness.
For some reason there is an audience for Discovery shit, and I don't understand it. It's definitely the woke crowd out there.
It's the new fans that are liking it, not the old ones.
I mean, look, it's clearly the generation gap. I mean, we're basically our grandparents who are complaining about rap music. We're the generation complaining about the next generation of television. So,
yeah.
Darren, that's probably the best idea I've heard for Raffi ever.
Do you think it could be the villains in season 3 of Enterprise coming back?
No kidding.
It is canon.
That's exactly what I was hinting at, to hear the able crewmen say that.
About to bump you back to garbage scow cleaner.
You You were begging me, Jay. You tricked me.
Look, I mean, I don't like Enterprise either, but I mean, bringing it back now
Blasphemy.
in my opinion, would be a mistake under the current regime. The only way that would work is if they brought back the old regime under Berman and Braga to actually remake that series. Otherwise, just stop touching old series.
I would love to see Manny Koto come back because I love season 4. He needs to do. We need the Earth Romulan War. Dang it! Bring it.
Well, there is a problem with that. How do you reconcile Balance of Terror with Enterprise?
Yes, that would be difficult, I would think.
I'm sorry. What would be difficult?
How do you reconcile the description of the Romulan War in Balance of Terror with what we know of Enterprise?
I don't know. I just like to see it. Well, we haven't seen. They haven't actually seen what a Romulan looks like in Enterprise. So it could possibly be done.
And your question, Professor, about how they would reconcile those 2 points is exactly why one of the very good examples of why I don't see Enterprise's canon conflicts exactly like the one you just mentioned. I reached
Because
my case.
they stated a long time ago that anything is canon only if it has been on screen or the movies, which I hate because I like New Frontier.
Well, I'm getting at the description that Spock gave of the war, what weapons they used, what the ships were like.
Well,
No.
we know that without them even saying it. We know Star Trek Enterprise was a reboot.
Darren's saying there's
Thank you, Jay.
Crewman. Darren is saying there's no conflict between Spock's Balance of Terror report and what we saw on Enterprise. Darren went over this in a lengthy post on the old Anti-Trekker website.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to see that post if you can produce it, Darren.
Darren, do you want to come up and describe your post this enjoy?
I think it could happen.
I mean, there might be a way that you could explain it, but the way I see it, if you compare what Spock said, he said stuff like there was no visual communications. There's they used primitive atomic weapons.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
I mean, yeah, they maintained that nobody saw each other, but the level of technology seems inconsistent.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
But if they didn't have
Can I give Darren the
how
link?
did they see to steer the ship? That didn't make sense in TOS.
Hey, John,
Sorry?
Darren wants to come up on the panel.
Yeah, I'm getting the link.
Okay. Darren, are you logged into Discord? I can give you the link there.
We're more exclusive here. We don't let the general riffraff come up here.
I have to correct you early on, Professor. You
Private invitation only.
You still referred to me as crewman. Crucial syllable you left out. 2 syllables.
Well, just remember, I wanted to bump you down to garbage scout cleaner. Darren, I sent it to you private message in Discord.
I wonder why Tokyo hasn't come in yet.
He's at work.
Oh.
He's on his lunch break, but he's at work.
Come on, Tokyo, it's Japan. You don't have to really work. You just have to pretend you're working.
Wow.
The truth in Japan, you don't have to be working hard. They value making it look like you're working hard more than actually getting things done.
Welcome,
Back me up, Tokyo.
Okay.
Greetings.
So I went over line by line Spock's report, because Salty, of course, uses that to justify his infernal triple timeline theory, which is a way of him accommodating all of his ideas and not reality. But no, the idea of primitive atomic weapons used. We know that even though the NX-01 was equipped with photonic torpedoes in the last two seasons, they still had the spatial torpedoes in that in the armory, and presumably, a lot of the other ships that were involved, like the Intrepid and the Shenandoah, were still using those, and those can be classified as primitive nuclear weapons, especially by the standards of 150 years later. That was the first thing there. Now, this idea that there was no visual communication, that was referring to between the Federation and the Romulan Empire and their mutual allies. So his idea that there shouldn't be a main view screen with bringing people up on the main screen and talking to them, that was how he interpreted that. But the reason why that line is there is to explain why nobody knows what a Romulan looks like in Balance of Terror. And I explained this to him, and he grudgingly nodded, but then he totally forgot that he agreed with me on this. That the proper interpretation is that they couldn't see who they were talking to whenever they tried to communicate with the Romulans. Neither could, I guess the Federation had allies that they don't say who they are, but could have been, I don't know, civilians or whatever. But again, a lot of this comes from Salty having watched Star Trek when he was a very little boy and getting these ideas in his head, and then not wanting to amend those ideas as he got older. But the timeline, basically, when Spock mentions, when the Earth-Romulan War took place, he gives us a figure that corresponds directly with what would have been the 5th season of Enterprise as well. So they were certainly building up towards that. We also, I can't remember what the other big sticking point was. Something else in that speech, that report. I'd love to get a transcript of that.
Well, Spock does talk about having no quarter, no captives.
Yeah.
Does talk about having no. Oh, we're getting an echo.
They allowed no quarter, meaning you couldn't take an entire crew prisoner before destroying their ship. That was, because that was basically up until World War I. That was what you were supposed to do before sinking a ship. You're supposed to be able to take the crew prisoner on your ship, and then you could sink their ship. Submarines, for example, flew in the face of that idea. The idea there was you sink the ship, and then the crew has to fend for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We did see that the NX-01 had a brig, but it only had 2 cells in it. Couldn't fit an entire crew in there, so that corroborates. I'm trying to work off on.
And also, they use subspace communication to do the treaty that ended the Earth-Romulan War.
Right. Yeah, and even in the minefield episode, which I have some problems with, they didn't see a Romulan. They were able to eventually talk to them over essentially a audio broadcast. I know that Manny Kodo, had he gotten a 5th season, was planning on tying up all the loose ends and that the temporal Cold War had left behind, plus also explaining away some of the continuity violations that had taken place as being a result of the of the temporal Cold War. For example, the green Romulan ships we saw in Minefield were actually supposed to be uh, uh, a faction of the temporal Cold War.
Okay. I would
That's
have
why
really,
yeah.
I would have really appreciated that if that was made, because then I could treat it like canon instead of the non-canon mess that it currently is. But
Yeah,
unfortunately,
the way that he would described it at a convention was, he said that the scene that we had planned was that Phlox was giving Reed his physical, right, and testing his muscle tone and stuff like that. And he goes, hard to believe you had a rod sticking through your thigh here just 2 years ago, and Reed doesn't know what he's talking about. And here it's because of the Denobulan's brain being more complicated than a human being's brain. He remembers the stuff that happened in the episodes that we saw, but those events no longer happened the same way. And
yeah.
they and basically Daniels comes and has to needs Phlox's help to tweak a couple things that happened along Enterprise's timeline. One of the things was, we see that um, the Romulan minefield situation happened differently, where we never saw ships, and
Okay.
they never they either weren't there or never decloaked, whatnot. I did a video um, on my channel called sorry, it's late. Bring up my channel now so I can give you the exact title. I know that the thumbnail said Operation Rewrite. It was Minefield from a Submariner's Perspective, where I sort of rejigger the episode so that it doesn't violate continuity. The idea being that Romulans are really good at hiding their ships, but they don't actually cloak them in this era. They hide them inside of miasmas and nebulas and things like that. And I fixed that little problem. But that's not exactly what Manny Coda would have done, but it's how I would have done it.
Yeah.
But that episode is a problem because
and the cleanup that Manicoto planned, was it going to get rid of the Ferengi interaction in season 1 and the timeline as well?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he might have been. I don't know. That one, the Ferengi one, I'm kind of fine with, because they were just space pirates is all they really were.
They never said the name of their species, so
That's right. They never did, and so there's that, and the idea also was that when we first heard about the Ferengi and TNG, Picard's log said that this is a race we know almost nothing about, meaning aside from rumor, we know almost nothing about them. So, and that kind of fits with what we saw in Enterprise, but.
Okay. What about the inconsistency with Vulcan's attitudes to mind melds, etc.?
Yeah, a lot of people had a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with that at all, because given the state.
well, they fixed that in season 4.
Yeah, in season 4 they found the teachings of Surak, and that was, and T'Pol even says this is causing ripple effect through Vulcan society. It's probably also the reason why they eventually decided to join the Federation, when that comes about as well. But it was like it would be like Christians not having the Bible and then all of a sudden finding the Bible.
Yeah.
And they find out what they're supposed to do, and yeah, I mean, the other thing you got to remember also was a lot of their attitudes towards things like mind melds were due to Romulan interference. They they showed the audience that the evil Vulcan politician was actually being influenced or even a plant from the Romulans. He may not have even been a Vulcan. He might have been a Romulan, because we see a Romulan at the end talking to him.
Yeah, I think he was a Romulan because he had a lot of anger in him, and Vulcans don't have anger; they suppress it.
Yeah.
And you could
Right.
see his face; he was mad.
He was seething, yeah, because he had spent so many years doing this. So, and by the way, the other Romulan he was talking to, that's the actor who plays Captain Shaw on Picard. So, a much younger man.
Yeah,
So,
very.
so again, but the bottom line is, I don't see that Enterprise is flying in the face of anything that Spock reported in Balance of Terror. I really don't. All based on interpretation.
Darren,
Plus,
I don't know if you noticed, I put the transcript in the chat there for YouTube.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. All right, so let's see.
I would love to see the Earth Romulan War.
I'm tired of prequels in general, but
Well, as long as they, if they would just do the Earth Romulan War and then stop, I would be happy.
Again, it depends on who does it.
yeah.
It's got to be Manny Koto.
And Manny Koto's pretty old now. I mean, he's going to be in his sixth, 70s now. I mean, he might not be. I mean, bringing him on as a consultant, would be one thing.
Yeah.
I would personally like to see a season of Enterprise, but the thing is, now that cast is so old. I mean, Bakula is way older looking than that.
Manny Koto is 61.
61. Okay, so he's not that old. Then he's only like 11 years older than I am. So he could do it, yeah. But Bakula, I think, is in his 70s, isn't he?
He's with NCIS anyway, isn't he?
That show ended.
Well, yeah, but he could. I mean, just one 10-episode season would be fine. I mean,
he's 68.
68, so he's pushing it.
You wouldn't get Jolene Blaylock back because she's quit acting.
Yeah, she might come back for a cameo, but I mean, I could see maybe. God, again, I just don't. This is what's so frustrating about Secret Hideout Trek was there was so many things we could have had if they weren't the ones who got the license to do streaming shows for Star Trek, because they were so interested in jettisoning the existing fan base, trying to cultivate their own fan base. And meanwhile, you look at Deep Space Nine. We've lost Rene Aubergenois, the guy who played Odo. Lost the actor who played Nog. I mean, so getting them.
I think the female changeling is gone too.
Yeah, Secret Hideout.
Salome Jens.
So many years.
Yeah. Salome Jens.
Darren, what
is gone.
She's 87 years old and she's still alive. But she's 87 years old. But yeah, that's the thing. But
the lady that played Moogie is gone.
One of them is, yeah. There was 2 actresses that played her.
Yeah, the one that replaced the first one. She's gone.
Yeah. But
since we've got you up here, Darren, what has your impression of Picard been, and what about this latest episode, if you've seen it?
Picard seasons 1 and 2 were terrible, but 3 I'm actually enjoying, and I want to see what happens. I think that
3 I'm enjoying as well. Sorry, go ahead.
As a send off for the original crew, I think it's doing everything that it's supposed to be doing. And it does feel even though it's got to use the secret hideout set design and production techniques, and things like that, it's still, the characters feel like their characters. They've changed obviously, but they haven't changed enough so that they feel like other people. Um, so yeah, I've been enjoying it, and I
Life
actually do
happens.
like,
People do change.
yeah, and
I just don't like the
happen.
lighting. The lighting should be up a little bit because in TNG, it was only dark during the night shift.
Well, they're going for a cinematic look here, and the lighting
I know.
on the Titan Bridge is very similar to the lighting that we saw in First Contact and
Mhm.
and Insurrection stuff. So it's got the cinematic movie
Yeah.
treatment for that. It doesn't look like a TV series, but I do like the Captain Shaw character, and I was kind of pissed off when Tavine got executed, because I am kind of hoping for something to happen with this crew after this season is over with. The Titan crew. So
From what I
thought
hear,
she was interesting.
everybody is willing to do it. They just haven't, because they need Terry Metalis, and right now there's kind of like a unannounced rift between Kurtzman and Metalis.
Oh, I'm
Is
sure
what
that
I
there's a
heard.
problem between the two of them, because Metalis came into Kurtzman's front yard and took a great big shit. I mean, he's shown up his boss. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Kurtzman didn't get anything like any kind of positive reaction the way that this season so far has. I mean, yes,
And he
Picard 3 has
wasn't
its
there day by
detractors too.
day. He
Right,
wasn't there
right.
day by day during the filming. He was doing another film or something, and Terry was the showrunner.
Yeah, and so at the height right now of the hype for and the praise for Picard season 3, Kurtzman has the gall to announce his Starfleet Academy tweener show.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that we're all going to be excited about that. No.
That
The
would
people
be
who are
great.
excited about what's happening with Picard season 3 are interested in what Terry Metalis is doing next. They want to see, they probably want to see
We
a lot
want
more
more
Shaw.
Terry Trek.
Yeah, they want more Shaw, and they don't want Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman to do that to a Shaw show. They want
God,
to see
no.
Terry Metalis do it. So, that's their problem right now. They actually
You're exactly right, Darren, because he did show Kurtzman how it's really supposed to be, even with it being 25% off of,
Yeah. I mean, they didn't just. I mean, it's not just Terry Metalis. For Picard season 3, they brought back the Okudas. They brought back
Yes.
Doug Drexler, who's one of my favorite guys
Yeah.
from the Berman era, who designed ships and stuff. And
He brought in an old writer too.
right. Well,
I didn't realize.
Metalis wrote for TNG, Voyager, and Enterprise, so
Yep.
he was
We've lost the
definitely had the feel.
professor. I didn't realize. Oh, there he is. Welcome back, Professor.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that they brought back the Akutas. That's very interesting.
Oh yeah,
They did.
All the updated Elcars are them.
Yeah, explains why the Elcars are so good.
I know he's back, but I don't know if she's back, his wife.
Well, they were both on the set, so maybe she was just
they
bringing
were?
him his coffee or something. But I don't know. It's possible.
Okay.
So Darren, do you agree with my concerns and some of the other people on the panel tonight concerns over the pacing, or do you think we're off base with the pacing?
the mystery box format, which is this format that a lot of streaming shows have taken, where they kind of string you along. You know, they try to keep you in sustained suspense, trying to figure out what's exactly going on until towards the end. It's not the best format, but it might be the best format for this kind of show, because again, this is supposed to be the final season of Picard. It's supposed to be the send off for the TNG crew. We're either going to be let down by whatever they reveal, or we're going to be satisfied with it. There's really the only two options there. But even even if they let me down, even if they establish that the bad guy is like Loxana Troy or something, I'm not gonna. I'm still gonna have enjoyed a lot of the moments in this show. As far as the pacing goes, yeah, the last two, 7 and 8, were slower. They slowed it down a little bit, gave us some thriller type, hostage situation moments. But
who do you think will be the bad guy, the face guy?
I don't know who that will be. I know who I'd like it to be. I'd like it to be the future guy from Enterprise, because there hasn't been, in my opinion, there hasn't been enough reference to Enterprise yet in this. So far, all we've gotten is the NX-01 refit at the museum. And if you look at future guys, if you look at future guys' MO from Enterprise, what does he do? He gives races genetic modifications, right? He gave the Suliban the ability to be super contortionists and compound retinas.
That would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, and so he's given these changelings. If it's him, he's given these changelings the ability to more convincingly mimic solids. But apparently, there's a trade-off, because now they can't survive in space.
Right.
And other problems, but that would be his MO. But again, I'm not saying that's who I think it is, because I don't know who it is. I mean, they've been very
I never thought about future guy. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not a big fan of Enterprise, if it is future guy, I've got to admit that makes a lot of sense based on what he did with his modification MO. So
yeah. Now again, it might not be him. It probably isn't, but that's who I'd like it to be. That's I'm not going to be calling the show bullshit if it's not the future guy, because
yeah.
I'm not gonna pull an LDG WandaVision on the show.
Yeah.
But
that's exactly what I was thinking, Darren.
But
I do think it's going to be somebody from the past, or somebody totally new that we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to have anything to do with the Borg, because the Borg were, in the last season, and I don't think we're going to get
seasons.
I don't think we're going to get Locutus versus
Terry said it wasn't the Borg.
Yeah, so even though they've kind of been red herring, whatever that word is.
Yeah, I think that's what they want.
I forgot about April Fool's when he came out with that thing about it's Neelix. I'm going like, why would you reveal it before the end of the thing? And I didn't even think about it until somebody told me that the day before was April Fool's, and I said, "Oh God, it's an April Fool's thing."
It wouldn't surprise me if it's Sela.
He said Sela is not going to be in.
Yeah, but again, I say it wouldn't surprise me. I know that Robert Meyer Burnett, love him or hate him, did say that after, when the show started, he'd already seen all 10 episodes. He says that there's a big, as he puts it, a big FU to Kurtzman Trek in general at the end of the show.
Good.
And
that's good.
That might also be a reason why there's a rift
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
them. But
Any future Kurtzman is okay by me.
yeah, but so I don't know what that's about, but I guess we'll find out.
Either way, we've got Kurtzman for 7 more years.
Mr. Londell says Seth MacFarlane will be the bad guy.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Victory is mine.
Yeah, the Red Angel from
So what
Oh,
was
God,
Michael
no.
Kilburnham.
What are some of the things you liked or didn't like about the last episode there?
Well, you know, a lot of people have talked about the language level. You know, I was in the Navy, so it doesn't bother me. I understand that it's not really what we're used to when it comes to, you know, Star Trek characters. Although, you know, again, it doesn't bother me enough to take any points off of it. You know,
I can't
it's
even
just
remember a swear word.
it's just kind of the way it is. I mean, and also, you know, when Star Trek moved into the movies, even the Kirk crew, they dealt with profanity because obviously now, you know, you break format. You're no longer on a TV show. You're on a movie. You can loosen up the language a little bit, just like you can loosen up the lighting. You can loosen up all kinds of other things because it's a different medium. It's still on your screen, but it is a different medium. And you know, everything from Double Dumbass on You, you know, you know, Kirk saying, you know, haven't you got any goddamn feelings about that? You know, things like that in the movies. That was a different you know, language shift as well from the original series. We get to TNG going to in their first movie, you know, their first big movie. Data, you know, looking at the fact that they're about to crash into Viridian 3 and saying, "Oh shit," you know, that was meant to get people in the audience to laugh, and it did. It worked. So I look at that as more of a format change than an attitude change. But yeah, I think it would be more powerful if they didn't drop so many f bombs and things. I don't have I don't have a problem with the bad guys doing it as much, like Vedic, whatever her name is, saying, you know, f, you know, fucking solids as she's you know, sucked out of the bridge.
Yeah.
That would have been fine, but you know, having Picard talk about, you know, being in a shuttlecraft for 10 and a half, you know, fucking hours was, didn't need that. You know.
Yeah.
That one just felt shoehorned in.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? What did you think about the airlock thing on the bridge? Do you think that was silly, or do you think that was fine?
No, I didn't think it was silly. Do you remember the episode where I don't remember the title of it, but it was the one where supposedly the ghosts of former Starfleet officers inhabited O'Brien, Data, Troy, and
Power play.
Power play. That's what it was. Yeah, and they had basically taken over the ship, and you know, eventually they had to lure them down to the cargo bay, and Riker knew instantly why Picard chose the cargo bay. And that was, you know, if their plan fails, you know, they can blow the cargo bay hatch and get them off the ship that way. I honestly didn't have a problem with it, although I would say that it would have made more sense to me if the hatch was actually above them in that glass dome that's above the bridge.
Yeah, that's what Cinnamon
You know,
yeah.
instead of having them blow out, you know, horizontally, have them just vertically get sucked up into the air. As a last minute way of getting somebody who isn't supposed to be on the bridge off the bridge, I think that's fine to have in there. It also reinforces the fact that that bridge does not have a window in the front of it. It has an actual bulkhead.
Thank
That's a
God.
view, and then that's a view screen they're looking at, and not a window. Because the smart window is one of those things I really don't like about uh, both Kurtzman Trek and JJ Trek. Is that should be a view screen.
I agree.
It's not a window. It's not a smart window.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you have liked to have, one of the things I would have liked to have seen would be Jack controlling, as I said earlier, controlling more than just one person and be a chain of people and take the ship that way and sort of progress and leapfrog from
Well,
people.
I think it's appropriate that he's only discovering what he can do now, and that he goes from being able to essentially help control LaForge to then basically taking over the Asian Bajoran with the European name, whatever his name was. It wouldn't have been good for him to go from just discovering this ability to all of a sudden becoming Professor X and taking over the whole crew and everything.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
And what's interesting to me also is when we finally got Troy on board, and she's got something meaningful to do. She's the one that's gonna help us learn what's behind the red door and why is it a red door.
One thing that frustrates me with Troy, well, with the behind the scenes decision to let go of the accent that she created for herself in TNG, because she was told to manufacture a planned accent because it already had one actor who was English supposed to be French, so it wouldn't make sense for her to speak like an English woman. But from first contact onwards, maybe the actress said, "No, I've had enough putting on that accent." But it really jars me the way Troy suddenly talks like a British English woman. A British woman these days.
Troy's accent never made sense because a lot of people don't know this, but originally she was supposed to play Tasha Yar.
Okay.
And Tasha, as the name implies, was going to have a Russian accent, and so she was told by Roddenberry and the people in pre-production, look, you're going to be playing a kind of a Russian, but you're going to be playing like a neo-Russian. So as long as you vaguely sound Russian, that's what we need. So she started working on this accent. Well, then.
Oh, I got the reason wrong for it.
But then she and Denise Crosby switched roles because she had better chemistry with Jonathan Frakes than Denise Crosby did. So they said, we still want you to maintain that accent because we don't want two British people on the bridge.
Okay,
TV series.
So it's half right, but half wrong.
Yeah. And which so your accent will just be how Bajoran. It'll be a Bajoran accent, or not Bajoran, but a Betazoid accent.
Betazoid.
Which worked just fine, but then when her mother shows up in the first season, of course, Majel Barrett doesn't have that accent, and so Brick Berman's like, "Don't worry, we'll just say that it's your father's accent." Well, that worked just fine until her father showed up on the holodeck and didn't have the accent. So then, but that was so deep into the show. I think that was like the 7th season or something. that by that time, I don't think anybody cared. But yeah, when they went to movies, basically it started with First Contact, starting with the scene where she got drunk at the bar with Zephram Cochrane. That's when she was essentially allowed to use her regular accent for that, and she's kept it ever since. And I honestly don't have a problem with it. It was something that she still sounded British to me, even though it wasn't exactly a British accent. As Troy, it had a slower, more rounded off accents. Again, Troy's accent is a funny little detail, but it's one of those things you notice but you don't notice. You know,
Okay.
for me.
You don't find it jarring from TNG to the present, even though it's meant to be the same person.
I probably would if I was more of a Troy fan. But
Yeah,
the
fair
problem with Troy was I don't think that there were some episodes where she just couldn't be there because
Yeah.
her presence would ruin the plot. It would jump
Yeah.
to the end too quickly, like the episode with the pack leads, right? Samaritan Stare. There's a reason why she didn't show up until half an hour into that episode, because she took one look at the pack leads and figured them all out,
Yeah.
and that it's yeah. So, but one of the things that I find interesting is the fact that the Titan has no ship's counselor.
Most
At least
ships
not.
don't
Yeah,
have ships counselor.
yeah, and it makes me wonder if that's just something that a ship captain can request to have if they want one or something. It's
Or they just
Deep
got
Space
rid of them altogether.
possible, but I mean, Deep Space Nine didn't have a station counselor until Ezri Dax shows up.
Hmm.
But so I think the ship's counselor position might be an elective. It might be something that
Actually, they did have a ship's counselor. During where O'Brien was in that cell for 20 years. Bashir
Okay.
told him to go see the counselor. They called him Dr. something.
Okay.
I mean, I just think it's one of those things we just haven't seen yet on the ship because it hasn't been necessary for the
Right.
story. I mean, because technically we haven't
Yeah,
seen
true.
an entire engineering crew yet, which is why
I was,
people are assuming there's no
Yeah.
engineers on the ship, which is completely stupid.
Everything
they
is
said that
automated.
everything's automated. They said
Well,
in the newer
technically,
vessels,
they
the
only
newer
said the
vessels
one
ship-
thing was automated. They didn't have to contact engineering before going to warp anymore. That doesn't mean everything's automated, though.
Yeah.
I found that whole line silly because even
Well-
in TNG they didn't fall down to engineering every time they went to warp. Picard just said engage, and Wesley engaged warp in from the cont station on the bridge. So I found that whole line.
during
Picard saying-
emergencies. Yeah, during emergencies, Geordi could control engineering from the bridge anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, even-
Right. I mean,
but the thing is, there are 3 chairs on the Titan bridge. And there's 3 chairs because we need one for Shaw, Picard and Riker and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like under normal conditions, okay, you've got a 3rd chair there that isn't used. There
Has to be the counselor.
Yeah, I would think
Doesn't
it would
have to be.
It doesn't have to be a
Or
counselor,
it could
but I
be
don't
for
think-
the chief
Specialist
medical
also.
officer or something.
or just a VIP guest chair that doesn't get used unless
Yeah.
there's VIP there. That's possible. I mean, the
Did-
thing that I find interesting about Shaw is he's one of those captains who's not on the bridge very much.
Right.
And I think that has to do with him being a former engineer. I think that he probably spends a lot of his time down in engineering, even if it is mostly automated or not. We don't know yet. But because
Being a dipshit from Chicago.
I mean, the captains on submarines are all former engineers. In fact, in order to be a commanding officer of a submarine in our fleet, you have to have an engineering degree.
Hmm.
That makes
And
sense.
so
Just
my first captain on Trepang spent more time back aft than he did in the control room, because he was his shore job when he wasn't in command. Before that, he had been a reactor inspector. And so you can bet your bottom dollar that he was really interested in Trepang's reactor, making sure that it was able to pass inspections, because that would look really bad if a reactor inspector who then got his own ship failed a reactor inspection.
Yeah.
so he was
Yeah.
very 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 anal about that. and we know that Shaw is of course still thinks of himself as an engineer, and so when he's
Yep.
falling all over himself in front of Geordi, and Geordi casually kind of dresses down his ship, saying that your hull is battered, bruised, and you're leaking fumes through duct tape and things, and he just freezes and
Mm-hmm.
he's taken aback by how curt LaForge is being with him, but then LaForge gives him a break and says,
Yeah.
What did you think of speaking of before? Just remind me, and this question can go around the whole group. I don't mean to exclude anyone, but I'll start with you, Darren. What did you think of Geordie's attitude when he first went on the Titan and he was all anti doing the right thing because he was afraid of his daughter getting hurt? I found that completely unbelievable, completely out of character. And I'm thinking he took a Starfleet oath and his daughter took the same oath, so he should understand that Starfleet is a dangerous job. If he didn't want his daughter in Starfleet, have the argument with his daughter before joining. Don't have the argument with the current commanding officer about to go on a dangerous mission. But
I thought it was fine.
Okay.
I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine. Again, Geordi even mentions, doing risky things was fine back in the day when I didn't have a family, but now all of a sudden he even talks about how he fears for his family members,
And he
more than
knows
ever
that
feared
he's
for himself.
fugitive.
Yeah,
But
more than he ever feared for himself, and he's and there's Picard reminding him, hey, your daughter made that choice to
Yep.
be on the ship and everything, and she even talks about it. I love her line where
Mm-hmm.
he's like, we have to let Starfleet handle this, and she's like, I am Starfleet.
Yeah.
This is my family.
Like that line. Yeah.
Did
So-
anybody catch when Data mentioned Spot was a he when it actually was mentioned that Spot was a she because she gave
Yep.
birth to kittens?
Well, Spot changed gender even in TNG.
Remember,
Yeah.
pronouns, you can choose those now, so it's okay.
Really?
I mean, Spot at one time was an iguana. Okay. So,
True.
How does a cat come from an iguana?
I think in the episode Metamorphosis or Genesis or something, it was a terrible
yeah.
Brandon Braga
Genesis.
episode. And I think that's also how they explained the gender change of the cat, because the cat had kittens and then got de-evolved into an iguana, and then when the crew is miraculously cured within the last 2 minutes of the episode, which is typical Brandon Braga shit. He did that again in Threshold.
Yeah.
That apparently now Spot became male at that point when he came back to being a cat, but he was male now. They said that in somewhere.
Tell him he's a fun cat, a good cat.
I will feed him.
And then Worf sneezes right on Spot.
It's interesting because I missed that. I always thought that Spot was a male all the way through. I missed the decay. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is, I mean, there are anytime you have an animal on a set, regardless of whether it's supposed to be a male or female, it often isn't. So for example, I just watched Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again the other day, and I noticed that the pit bull, Brad Pitt's pit bull Brandy, which is supposed to be a girl, when the dog runs up to the door to be let in, you can clearly see that it's male.
Mm-hmm.
You can clearly, unless the dog's got a huge clit. Yeah, unless the dog's got a great big clit, it's obviously a male. So
You think the writers would think about these things, and
They don't.
For
Well,
the
sure
That's
they
not a
do.
right. That's not a writer problem. That's a casting director, animal coordinator problem, and it's also
well,
a special effects problem.
you think
You can remove the
you
junk of a
think they'd be
dog
coordinated, is what I'm saying.
for a few frames, to keep
I
the
mean-
illusion that it's a female dog.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to remember when they're doing animals, they always have 4 or 5 different animals playing the part
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, certain animals will do some things and certain animals will don't. So I mean, they have to have several copies of the same animal to play the part.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, because they had 3 Lassies in the old Lassie TV show.
I think they said they
There
had
were
like 3 Porthos or something.
there were 5 Porthoses
5.
in
Yeah,
total.
5.
Wow.
Each one was able to do a different thing.
Usually,
I
they
love
don't,
Porthos.
usually they don't like behind the scenes stuff because it ruins the illusion. But we're already talking about Enterprise, so I don't really care. I thought I'd
He
get more
considers
reaction.
Enterprise blasphemy on Star Trek.
Crewman, you're confusing Enterprise again with Discovery. You got to stop doing this.
Papa's about to spank you.
I knew I'd get a reaction. Anyway, I said that I was going to ask all the panelists what they thought about Geordie's reaction. So, was I the only one that had a problem with it, or?
Well, I didn't have a problem with it. I really thought that being a parent changed Geordie. He had a family now, and he wanted to protect his kids.
Exactly.
As that's what a parent does. They
It's
get over.
obviously
Some
something
parents
that-
can get overprotective. Maybe he was a little overprotective of his daughters.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's something I don't understand because I don't have kids. So maybe it shows a lack of knowledge in my part.
I will say that I kind of wish we could see more phasers being fired, because so far the Titans only fired phasers once, and that was to detonate one of their own torpedoes
Yeah, that's true.
in the nebula. And I know why they prefer torpedoes for movies and shows like this. It's because it's an inherently more suspenseful weapon. It takes time for it to get to the target. Submarine movies are all about that, but phasers can be done very well. I mean, to this day, one of my favorite moments in a Star Trek movie was in Generations, when the Enterprise D fired phasers at the Klingon bird of prey. And I remember being in the theater, and they had one of those great big bass speakers in the front of the theater, right underneath the screen. And when the beam hit the shields of the bird of prey, there was this great big bass sound. it just felt like that it had weight. You know what I mean? And if they could pull that off more often, great.
Yeah, I was to that point. I was surprised when they said fire everything we've got, and then what phasers weren't fired. It's like, well, you're not firing everything. I'll quickly ask John what he was going to, because I think, John, you were going to say something just before that last point.
Yes, regarding your question about Geordie's behavior, well, one of the things I've noticed about this season in general is they seem to be showing that various characters, now that they have children, are acting very differently than we were used to them asking in the past. And I recognize, of course, that over time people will change, and that having one or more children will have a big effect on your life. However, and I say this as a parent myself, I think some of the changes in these characters are unbelievable just on the basis that they have a child now. I know that there's going to be changes in your life, but when I became a parent, my core moral principles did not change. True. And the problem I had with that, for example, is when Picard and Crusher are apparently willing to execute one of their prisoners because they see the prisoner as a threat to their son, which I don't think is consistent with their characters, even now that they're parents.
They were just talking about it. They weren't actually. I think they were trying to make her hear that. But I also think that Geordie would be very different if he had 2 sons instead of 2 daughters. A father to a daughter different than a father to a son. They're not going to treat him the same way. You know what I mean? And
Isn't that
there's no way. There's no way to prove this. Obviously, that's just something that I've always felt. You know, if you remember, do you guys ever see the movie A League of Their Own?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a scene where you remember the homely girl who was really good at baseball, but then she didn't she took her hat off, and John Lovitz kind of was taken aback by how homely she was and didn't hire her and then the other women, well, anyway, the father comes up to the recruiter John Lovitz with his hat in his hand and says, "Look, it's my fault. I raised her like a son. I didn't raise her like a daughter. She doesn't know how to do makeup or anything." He goes, he literally begs him, on behalf of his daughter, and I just don't think that the father of a son in that position would do that. But it's just one of those things where a daughter's father is inherently going to do things differently than a son's father would, and
Right.
And that's where I think we're at with Geordi here. I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that they are daughters.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, Darren.
I think also we have to
agree with you.
I think we also have to take in consideration not just because he's become a father that he's had all these changes also, but and not just time, but also his change in rank and position too.
Well, that's interesting because Commodore is one of those really in the real world U.S. Navy. Commodore is a rank that has come and gone and come again and gone. It was controversial in the 70s and 80s because a bunch of Commodores. But
sorry, you go ahead. I had my bit after. Sorry, you go ahead.
Okay, in the U.S. Navy, the rank above captain was Commodore, and then it goes and then Rear Admiral. But a whole bunch of Commodores in the 70s were going, look, if we were in the Army, Air Force, or Marine Corps, I'd be called a general. I want to be called an admiral. And they got rid of the Commodore rank. They called it Rear Admiral lower half, and then Rear Admiral became Rear Admiral upper half, so that it more closely matched the other branches. Well, then, first 2 years of the Reagan administration, they changed it back to Commodore, and then 2 years later they changed it back again to So I mean, the rank of Commodore has a very circuitous history in the U.S. Navy, and so at first I was kind of like, I found it odd that they brought back the rank of Commodore, because right around the time they got rid of it in the 70s is when they stopped showing us Commodores in Star Trek, right? But they have brought Commodore back lately in the U.S. Navy, but not as a rank, but as a job title. So I don't know exactly. I didn't get a good look at Geordi's uniform and how many pips he has. Or
He has the one square pip, the one pip in a square, in a solid square.
Okay, so he probably is then a rank Commodore, because it doesn't sound like that's a job title.
I don't understand why Commodore is so controversial, because in the Royal Navy and all Commonwealth navies based off the British Royal Navy, Commodore has been a substantive rank since the Napoleonic Wars. Commodore's just another rung on the ladder.
Well, Star Trek, Star Trek considered the rank of. They actually turned fleet captain into a rank too. If you remember Menagerie, with Pike became fleet captain Pike. Well, in the U.S. Navy, a fleet captain is just a captain who happens to be part of a admiral's staff, a fleet admiral's staff. So that he's not actually he doesn't have like 4.5 stars or 4.5 pips or whatever. He's got he's just that's just his title. He's still a captain by rank, but you call him his full title would be fleet captain. Yeah, he's still a captain.
I was talking earlier about Geordie's rank of Commodore, saying that I thought it was weird that somehow he surpassed Riker in rank because he was lower than Riker in TNG.
Honestly, given the fact that Riker turned down 3 different commands,
Yeah,
he had already turned down command of the Drake before we even saw him, before encounter at Farpoint. Then he was offered the Ares, he turned that down. Then he was offered the Melbourne, he turned that one down. And then finally he takes the first Titan. And he, I mean, Riker is a problem for the realism of the show, because the reason why he turned down all those commands was because Frakes needed a full-time gig. If he had gotten his own command, then he would have been relegated to an occasional special guest star, maybe.
yeah.
In his own show, and so they had to keep coming with these contrived ways for him to stay on the Enterprise, and when really he shouldn't even have ever gotten to the Enterprise. Although he did, what they did was they established that he really liked the prestige of being on the Enterprise. He would rather be second fiddle on the Enterprise than head honcho on his own little unremarkable ship somewhere. But and that whole thing with Commander Shelby in Best of Both Worlds, where she wants his job, and he won't move. He won't leave that job. That was some meta stuff, because it was almost like the writers trying to and the actors trying to explain to the audience why he's still there, So Riker turning down all those commands, whereas Geordi, we saw him go from lieutenant and helmsman to lieutenant commander and engineer. I think he made commander in the movies, and then on Voyager, at least in one alternate future, I think, or alternate present, he was a captain of a ship, and now we have him here. And again, I didn't have a problem with that. Him being a Commodore and outranking Riker makes sense to me.
Yeah, now that you bring up his history of turning down commands, it does make sense. It's like, oh, we've given up on you now. You can stay where you are. You've had your chance.
I mean, we saw that Worf has 4 pips. On his,
I don't
own.
agree with that, given how many reprimands Worf has got over his career.
Well, according to, hold on, I'm sorry, crewman, I don't mean to be interrupting you like this. It's late and I'm getting kind of punchy. I'm gonna probably leave here soon.
That's all right.
Having trouble talking and thinking at the same time. but apparently in the new continuity, Worf took over command of the Enterprise after Picard retired or got promoted to admiral or whatever.
Okay.
So which is interesting to me, because I would have loved that show. That
hasn't been established on air, has it?
It's apparently in Terry Metallis's notes or something. It was
okay.
Something that he had shared, but and we don't know how long he was in command, but he was promoted to captain and became captain.
Remember, he was reprimanded in TNG for killing Duros.
He was also reprimanded for blowing up a ship that the Klingons tried to frame him for blowing up a transport ship full of civilians.
Yep.
And things like that.
And he was also confined to quarters one episode after punching out a Jim ass. So to me, he's too much of a hothead to be a captain.
Yeah. But then he defeated the Borg again, and then also he fought in the Dominion War, and a lot of things change when you start when a fleet goes to war for for example, there's a lot of captains who make really good peacetime captains, but make lousy wartime captains. So you've seen some of these captains on Star Trek before, like you remember Captain Estefan of the Grissom. He wasn't in command of a warship, but he wasn't the kind of guy that would you'd give a warship to. If you remember the original captain of the Excelsior, the guy that had that baton,
Styles.
right? Okay, Styles, right? Total idiot, right? I mean, he's fine for being the commanding officer of the Excelsior during their sea trials, but in a war, that a guy like that would get killed right away, And so, and that's another thing, because Starfleet was so short-handed by the end of the war. I mean, I'm not surprised that Shaw, eventually became a captain. There was a line that Vedic had about Shaw. I'm moving on to Shaw though.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. There was a line about Shaw that Vedic said about his last psyche eval, and I'm just wondering. It's like, okay, I wonder if there's some unspoken stuff there, and then later we find out that he has survivor's guilt, lingering survivor's guilt, and the fact that he has a former Borg first officer is putting more stress on him than probably somebody else would. I think we're going to see a moment where he finally starts calling her Commander 7, but she's already kind of said that that's how she wants to be called. Earlier she said that Shaw asked how did she knew that the Forge was a changeling. She says, because she always calls me Commander 7 out of respect.
Yeah.
And then she reiterates this again to him. In this last episode, almost to the point of being insubordinate. But
I don't think they did any favors for Shaw in this last episode, because he just seemed like a wimp. He didn't want to stand up to Vadic. He didn't take any action or anything. He just kind of
he got his ass beat off camera.
Yeah, true, but still.
Shaw has been banged up in this series so far. I mean, that the compound fracture in his leg and the internal injuries that he had to get patched up for, and then he gets hammered in the turbo lift on the way up to the bridge by a couple of changelings. I mean, he's been pretty effed up. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the moment where he lets Seven give the order to destroy the Shrike seemed like like he was giving her a gift, but it also seemed kind of weak on his part. I do agree with that. It's almost like they have a relationship that's like a command and second officer relationship, kind of like the one on the Orville, where Ed Mercer was really good at the day-to-day normal operation of the ship, but then Kelly was always better at the improvised thinking and things like that, and doing special moves and stuff. It reminds me a little bit of that relationship, only they're not married or not exes or anything. But Shaw also, I think, is there's certain writers on the show, because you got to remember that the writers trade off. You get somebody writing 2 episodes here and then 2 episodes here. I think that the writer for these last 2 episodes, 7 and 8, didn't get the memo that Shaw was supposed to be mellowing out at this point in the story, and not being such a dick, and so.
I mean, the way I kind of sorted out his weakness on the bridge this episode was he's kind of the perfect example of the separation between combat captains and exploratory captains. With the Titan being an exploratory ship, I just don't think he's a captain that would do well in a combat situation, and that's why essentially you would give control to Seven, who definitely would be able to take over in that situation.
Yeah. Like I said, he's not the captain who spends a lot of time on the bridge either. We don't see him on the bridge a lot, and he just seems to be. In fact, I wouldn't even call him a exploratory captain. I mean, he seems a little bit too preoccupied with minutia. Like when he introduced himself, when we saw him for the first time, he says, he doesn't like jazz. He prefers meter and timing, precision, and things like that. That's
It sounds
what he's
like
all
he would
about.
be
Mhm.
good captain for cargo runs because he's all about schedule
Yeah.
and efficiency.
Yeah, and he was a play it safe kind of guy too. I mean, when Riker and Picard come on board wanting him to change course, it's like, I got orders from actual officers here, that
Yeah.
I have to abide by, and we'll see what happens, but he's starting to change, though. I think that I agreed with you, Cinnabon, initially, but I think the moment where I thought of him as becoming more of a combat oriented captain was when his ship now had the cloaking device. They arrived at Daystrom Station, and you beam up whoever you got now because they're getting out
Yeah.
of there. I thought that was a good piece for him.
Sure.
But again, the writing is a little bit inconsistent for him. I think, yeah, you're right. I did notice that he was not as great in these last two episodes as he was in the previous ones. So
Mhm.
we'll see what happens there.
I guess the one reason I'm also not being extremely harsh on Shaw either is because technically we've spent 2 days on the ship with them so far.
Yeah.
in
something
universe
like that.
time.
Yeah, and so I mean, the one thing I want to bring up also that I don't think anybody's brought up yet is just how fast the Titan appears to be compared to the rest of the fleet. Because if you know how the warp curve is supposed to work, it becomes exponential after
Right.
after you hit 9. Basically, it's a straight line up. It's no longer a curve. It's a straight line. And going 9.999, or is it 9.99? That
It's
I think
is,
it's
9, yeah.
9-9.
it's two nines after the decimal point. So that's way. I mean, because Voyager's maximum velocity, as stated in the first episode, was 9.975.
Mm-hmm.
9.99 is got to be at least 3 or 4 times faster than that 7.5 was. So because of the way that curve works, and that seems to be the only advantage this ship has in when it comes to, because every other Federation ship we've met is at least as well armed as they are. I mean, Intrepid which I thought was a really cool design, but definitely seemed to be more threatening. But yeah,
I'm going to say that the ship is even faster than you think, because this is post Prodigy timeline, where you had the ship on that show going exceedingly fast through Slipstream. And I think they may have to redefine the warp scale, because I don't think you're going to say set course at speed warp 9.9999999. You know what I mean? They're
right.
going to redefine
Yeah.
the scale because the ships are so fast.
Yeah, they did that in All Good Things. The ships all had a maximum warp of warp 13,
Yeah.
which seems better, than saying that. So you're right, but I mean, for example, the episode with Daystrom Station, right? Titan leaves Daystrom Station and goes to the Fleet Museum, and they're communicating with Worf saying, we're going to be at Daystrom Station in 90 seconds or something. So apparently they're able. The Titan almost has a spore drive in terms of how fast it can get somewhere within
Mhm.
Federation space. It doesn't have a spore drive. It's not teleportation, but it's pretty darn close. I mean, getting because nobody knew that they were at the at the Fleet Museum until Jack removed the cloaking device from the bird of prey and set off the alarms. So, but I mean, just by dialogue, I've watched that sequence several times here, and it's like they're literally teleporting, figuratively teleporting from Fleet Museum to the Daystrom Station. We don't know how far away they are, but they have to be far enough away from each other so that Starfleet isn't looking for them at the Fleet Museum. You know what I mean?
Right.
Doesn't know they're there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that seems to be the main advantage that the Titan has. It's not. It seems to be relatively sparsely armed. I mean, it's got. We know it's got the forward and aft torpedo launchers, similar to the Connie. It's got the phaser turrets and also 2 phaser strips on each side of the saucer. So it has, phasers on it. We know that it's already fired them once. But we didn't see where the phaser bolt came from, but I would just like to see some more. I'd like them to use the turrets and the phaser strips. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be cool.
I'm surprised that an exploratory vessel is phaser turrets. Phaser strips I can understand, but turrets seem to be a bit of overkill when they specify it as an exploratory vessel rather than a cruiser or a combat ship.
Well, I don't know exactly what constitutes an exploratory vessel. I know that according to the Next Generation Tech Manual, back when the D was constructed, the idea was the Explorer was the most capable ship. It had, it was basically able to fulfill all the roles that Starfleet could possibly give it. So it could do a planetary survey, it could go into combat, it could explore, things like that. The idea that it was ready for everything.
Somebody said at the beginning of the series, we're not well armed, we're only an exploratory vessel.
Yeah, and apparently that has changed now, where an exploratory vessel isn't the most powerful ship they have anymore. It seems to be designed for. I mean, if Titan is any indication, it's designed mostly for speed. But I don't know, guys. Thanks for having me. I know I've talked your guys' ear off already. I'm gonna go ahead and drop out because I have to get my ugly sleep. So.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Darren, for the interesting conversation.
Yeah,
Enjoyed it.
good.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Cinnabon, I wanna touch on something that you said, that data is just being used as like a plot device, essentially, to bring the plot forward. I disagree with that because you've got one main storyline for Data in this series that really wasn't completed in TNG that they are completing now, and that's with his relationship with Lore.
I mean, I really don't see it that it needed to be completed. I mean, they kind of did at the end of the what was it? What was that episode? The 2-parter with that where he was the Borg.
Descent.
Yeah.
Descent.
I mean, you kind of had that wrap up with their relationship there, where you had to deactivate Lore and essentially kill him.
Yeah, but I don't think the tension between the two. I mean, Data could remember this, and I don't think that was complete yet.
I mean, it's one of those stories I just really don't think you even needed completing.
Fair enough. I disagree with you on that, but
I think that's a good point, Professor. I mean, I respect Cinnabon's opinion, but I think you make a good point there. I'm a bit worried that Lore is now a part of Data. Could the part of Lore change Data into something evil? I mean, he doesn't seem to be at the moment, but I'm a bit worried because he's now an amalgamation between the two. Do you think they could make him extremely unpredictable?
well, I think Data kind of gave what Lore needed, and Lore gave what Data needed. They complement each other. They even each other out.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And that's why it's more human.
And Thomas, B4, such a minor character in the overall scheme. I don't think he had much of a personality in there to begin with. There may be some sort of combination of him in there with Data and Lore, but
Well, they had
I
said
don't.
in the
I don't
episode
think. Go
that
ahead.
V4 and Soong were just relegated to memory files at this point.
Okay.
What I'm curious about is they mentioned Lal in the first episode where they
Yeah.
found Data, but they haven't said anything about her since then.
Just forgot about her.
Yeah, I noticed that too, John. I kept thinking, what about Law? What about Law?
Well, I mean, I guess in this last episode when he said all the personalities that Soong programmed into him, that just was all encompassing and included Lal at that point too. But it doesn't really seem to have like really any effect on his personality, so I'm assuming that like before and Soong, it's just going to be relegated. If they did mention it, it would just be relegated to like memory files for him.
Data didn't murder anybody. Stop it, Thomas.
Exactly.
Stop
Data's
it.
going to the lowest circle of hell. Or maybe possibly even Klingon hell.
And
No,
what about
I-
Zoidberg?
Data's not a murderer at all. I'll be right back, guys. I just had to push myself up in the chair.
No, but honestly, I think Data has been in there essentially because they wanted to get the entire Next Generation crew back together, and that feels to me pretty much it. And he's been there to try and be to have emotional scenes with Geordi essentially, and that's kind of it. And everything else has been kind of coincidental. That thank God we had an Aeon on board that could do exactly 40 trillion calculations per second. Thank God we found him at exactly the right time. And other than that, he hasn't really done much except for try to provide emotional scenes for essentially Next Generation fans, it seems like.
Yeah, fair enough. But he's only been in 3 episodes, so.
True, but I mean, I feel that if they didn't have him at all, they could have just come up with another solution for the take over the computers anyway, and it would have worked. It would have worked just fine. I mean, Data to me so far. I mean, to be fair, we still have 2 more episodes to go, and he could play a bigger part in the story. But like I said, he just doesn't feel like a character yet in this season, and he's just there to be there.
I don't know. The scenes between him and Lore really got to me. I thought those were well done. The best part of this last episode, in fact.
See, if they didn't already kill Data twice already, it might have had a better effect on me. But I mean, they already killed him twice. I had zero. I didn't think for a second that they would kill him for a third time, bring him back just to kill him for a third time. So I essentially figured that he's going to overcome Lore somehow, and I thought that the scene inside of his head was just felt contrived to me. They just wanted to have that scene, so he was literally pulling out member berries for that. So that's like the one scene that I can.
But they had to. I mean, it
really
just fit.
berries.
It fit.
Yeah, but
the memories were essential to the plot of how he overcame Lore. He overcame Lore by using his memory.
Crewman, you got the able part back in your name.
Yeah, but for me, it was just a way to get Data back, and they just had to contrive a reason to get him back.
Thomas is calling you salty bun.
And thanks for giving my promotion back. Very kind.
It's provisional, Crewman. Able Crewman. You may lose it again, depending on what you say from here on out.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna try and ease Cinnabon's concerns by saying at the end of the last episode, when they're all gathered around the equivalent of the observation lounge, from that point on, it sounded like they were gearing up to be, because everyone was together like old times. And so I think in the last 2 episodes, the actors and the characters are going to be exactly like old times, And even though you may think data was being used inappropriately so far, I think that the more gathering around the briefing table is sort of a pivot point to sort of, they've got a restart, and they're now back as a family, back as a functional crew like old times, and everyone's going to behave like they used to be. So,
I don't think they'll behave like they used to. I mean, you can't just delete 30 years of personal history for these characters and have them go back to the way they were in the next generation. That would be silly, in my mind.
maybe I'm phrasing it a bit wrong, but I just see good times ahead. I just wish that we got to this point earlier so that we had more than just 2 episodes to go.
Right. I think they should have. I mean, if they wanted to bring Data in, I think they probably should have brought him in a little bit earlier and have him actually do something. Spend some time with with Lore even being on the ship and then again eventually turning against him, and that's what causes the problem, and they have to try and get Data back somehow. But it just seemed like. I mean, I don't know. I can't really articulate it, but for me, it just basically just felt like a plot contrivance. So they just needed to have him there to complete the next generation crew.
Okay.
And he's just been serving as a plot device.
I'll admit there's an element of that.
Going
back to what you said about the conference table scene, though, I just wanted to bring it up because we haven't really talked about that yet. The one thing that bothered me about that scene is not one Titan crew member was in that room. Which made zero sense.
I agree. Shaw and Seven should have been there at least.
Well, I get Shaw. He's probably in sickbay, right? That's fine. But Seven, she should have been in there. If not, at least somebody from their security staff or from their command staff should have been there.
That's fair enough. But does everyone else agree with me that moment sort of signaled like the old gang back together and they're going to behave like old times from that point on?
Yeah, I think that had that feel, definitely.
Yeah.
It was certainly there.
Yeah. I mean, it was nice to see, but it was a little fan servicey just because it was just them in the room for some reason. Like they took over the ship.
Yeah, they should have had Seven there, I agree. What do you think, John, about
I agree with the point that it was odd that it was just them in the room. There was nobody from the Titan there. But yeah, and I know that the scene where they're all around the conference table is supposed to, be nostalgic. We got the gang back together, but at this point in the season, it didn't really affect me that much. Maybe it's just because I'm old and cynical now.
No,
but as I've said before, that I don't like the way they've used a lot of these characters this season, so that kind of weakened the moment for me.
Fair enough.
I agree with that.
What do you think, John, to Cinnabon's point? Do you agree with Cinnabon that Data's being just used as a plot device, or do you agree with myself and Professor Brainy Speaks that he's more than that?
Well, I think there's elements of both. I think in a lot of episodes he is kind of basically a plot device, although I think some of his scenes, majority, have been kind of good. Yeah. I mean, the theme in this last episode, the part with him and Lore, I thought was okay. And I had other things with the episode that bothered me a lot more anyway.
Right. I mean, I don't deny that the Geordi scenes haven't been good. They've been emotional and they've been nostalgic, but I feel like they're just there for the nostalgia. They're not really pushing the plot forward.
Fair enough. Thanks for your feedback, John.
Of course.
Yeah. So Jay, what do you think of? We'll get everyone's view on this.
Is Jay even there?
Oh, he might not be.
His mic is muted.
True. I just wanted to give him a chance.
The last thing I'll say about the conference thing is my favorite part was Worf's line. So when he was talking about sending heads to everybody.
Yeah, I think Worf has had Yeah, Worf. Some of his lines this season have been very funny, but I
Yeah.
think the reason they're funny is because they're the kind of stuff that you wouldn't really expect Worf to say.
Yeah, that's true. Like when he came into when they were going to save Riker and Troy, he just launches into, "I've been waiting to see you," and Riker's just reaction of inappropriate. That was a funny interaction. That was one of my other favorite parts of the episode.
I also thought that kind of having the therapy session between Deanna and Will was kind of a weird place to have it in a prison cell. Wouldn't you be more concerned with escaping at that point?
Well, I mean, they destroyed the ship, right? Wait, when are you talking about the end where she's talking to Jack?
No, when they were in
No.
the cell at the
Oh, when
beginning
they're
of
in
the
the cell.
episode on the strike.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I suppose, they're locked in a cell. There's really nowhere to go, so why not just chit chat for a while?
I suppose. However, it was sort of more iterating when they went into detail about Deanna actually using her powers to take away Will's pain. That's why he had such a bad reaction to it all.
I mean, I kind of laughed at that point just because I was thinking of Cybok. I was thinking like Troy goes up to him and just touches his chest. He's like, "Give me your pain, share it with me. Gain strength from the sharing, Riker."
Yeah. Yeah. What did you guys think about that?
I had a similar reaction as Cinnabon did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to admit, I did not have that reaction, but I can see where it comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as things being out of character, that to me feels out of character for Troy. I don't think. I mean, going into someone's head and essentially just trying to screw with their brain and push away their pain. That just, for me, that felt extremely out of character, like something she would never have done. And in fact, I think if someone was doing that on TNG, trying to screw with someone's head, she would be the one that has a problem with it.
I guess it's difficult when her judgment was emotionally compromised because it was her son that died and it's her husband.
Yeah,
She's not
I mean, that's
acting
true.
as professional counsel at that point. She's just acting as a grieving mother and trying to be a supportive wife, but going around about it in the wrong way.
And I think the reason why I also felt it was out of place is because to me it also felt like just kind of a rush job by the writers to try and explain away the interaction they had in season 1 where things seemed completely happy, and they just needed an excuse for that, why things have changed so much and why everything was different.
Okay.
So I think it was just something that wasn't thought out as well as it should have been.
Fair enough.
They had a lot to fix.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't touch it, I would have been actually fine with it, to be honest, because most of us don't even look at seasons 1 and 2 anyway.
Yeah, it's true. We just ignore those as if they never happened.
And Thomas saying, again, salty bun.
Yeah.
6
Thomas,
minutes ago.
why don't you, Thomas, instead of criticizing in the chat, why don't you come up and give us your opinion on camera? Or not necessarily on camera, with your camera off, but you know what I mean. Live on the stream.
I don't know if he can talk real well right now.
Oh.
I'm not salty bun, Thomas. I don't I don't think this show has destroyed the ethos of the next generation.
Oh, just salty hated that much. I had no idea.
Yeah. It's one of his main issues is it destroys the ethos of TNG, and I completely disagree. I just think that
He hates TNG anyway.
True. I just think that 30 years later, people are going to change. The galaxy has completely changed. We had the Dominion War, the destruction of Romulus. Everything's going to be different in this time period. So,
And he has no problem with Strange New Worlds destroying TOS.
Yeah, he's very inconsistent though.
I think it works for the current events of this time period that they're in, and I also think that, like it or not, they've established in Discovery in the future the Federation essentially just falls apart. So I mean, they kind of are showing small cracks in the Federation at this point that you could say leads to that separation and things going bad in the future.
I would really just like to see a new show set in this time period. Forget about Discovery. Just
Shove
can
it
that
down the
Yeah.
down the nearest black hole.
exactly hand the stupid Academy show that they've got planned and just do a new crew in the 25th century. That would be brilliant. But they're probably not going to listen to us. Anyway, I don't know what the time is there, but I'm guessing it's late. Did you guys want to wrap up the stream now, or are you happy to keep going?
It's not late for me. It's only midnight around here.
It's about midnight here as well. However, I have to be at work in 8 hours.
Yeah, I was planning to wrap up the stream pretty soon.
Okay.
Thomas, I believe Thomas says you have to stream for another 6 hours.
Well, we can keep going, Cinnabon, if you want.
No,
I just
Jim
don't want-
has to stream for 6 hours. He has to get on a gaming stream and play some Star Trek game.
That's not happening. There's no good Star Trek games right now.
Thomas is calling us a bunch of quitters.
I'm not quitting, Thomas. I'm staying here whether they like it or not. I'll still be here on Saturday when they start the stream. Just talking to myself.
Thank you guys so much for agreeing to this unplanned stream, because I didn't know until this morning that I wasn't going to be able to make it for the quiz. And I've been looking forward to the quiz all week and the discussion after the quiz about the show. And so at least I got the discussion portion in early, so I didn't miss out on that. So thank you all very much for agreeing to stream today.
Our pleasure.
I had fun. Saved me from having to do a stream, so I'm happy with that. And it saved me from that works for me, even though I might still do a game stream in a little while because I'm wide awake anyway. So
There you go, Thomas.
there you go, Thomas. You'll have something to do later, maybe.
Well-
I'm not making promises.
What-
Speaking of games, though, if you guys want a good Star Trek game, I suggest you guys go check out the trailer and the early stuff that's come out for the new one that's coming out next month, Star Trek Resurgence. It takes place, it looks like, in the TNG era, right around 2380, I think they said. And I think it looks pretty awesome. It looks like it's gonna be one of the best Star Trek games that have come out in a very, very long time, if not the best Star Trek game.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
We talked about it a little bit a couple nights ago, but
Yeah, I saw that while you're going over it in your stream. It looks pretty good.
yeah, I think it looks incredible.
what's it called? Resurgence.
I believe it's Star Trek Resurgence.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'll search for that.
It's an Epic game, so I'm sure if you go to the Epic game store page, you'll be able to find it.
Cool.
Comes out in May.
Yeah, May. Well, just May. They haven't given an exact date yet. Sorry.
Cool.
That's something I'm really looking forward to because it looks like a decision-based game, so it'll definitely be a fun game for streaming. So people in the chat can make all the decisions, and we can go from there.
Cool. That'd be great. Alrighty. Well, I'll let those that are tired to drop out. Cinnabon, if you want to keep talking, you can. Up to you. But thanks
possible.
everyone.
I think I have a reprieve though because Thomas says he can't be up all night tonight. So
Okay. Good.
I've got an out.
Up to you guys. Anyway.
Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I think you guys are welcome to keep chatting backstage if you want to. But I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us, both on the panel and in the chat. And we hope you return tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, our usual time, for our Jeopardy game.
And
Another week of being undefeated, of course, over here.
I know this will make me lose the able bit of my rank again, but Cinnabon, since I can't be on the quiz, I deputize you to be the not canon guy whenever whenever Enterprise is mentioned in the quiz. Okay.
Oh God.
All right. See you, everyone.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for
All right.
streaming, John. It was fun.
My pleasure. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.